Today's episode is brought to you in part by Cold-Blooded Caffeine, a small batch coffee company built around reptiles, conservation, and really good coffee. Founded by Trey Hall and McKendrick Dunn, Cold-Blooded Caffeine connects roasted to order coffee with real-life conservation in coffee-producing countries. 5% of every bag sold goes directly to conservation efforts, and I'm excited to announce that the Expert and the Idiot podcast now has its own custom coffee blend. Every penny from my profits from that blend will be donated to indigo conservation through the Orion Society. If you want great coffee that actually supports the animals and ecosystems we all care about, check out coldbloodedcaffeine.com. This episode is brought to you in part by Exoterra. If you're as passionate about reptiles and amphibians as I am, you know that quality matters. I use Exoterra products on all my reptile and amphibian enclosures, which is why I'm excited to be partnering with them. From naturalistic decor to innovative lighting and enclosures of all sizes, Exoterra has everything you need for your cold-blooded companions. Exoterra, make your reptiles feel at home. This is the Expert and the Idiot podcast. If you like the show and you'd like to support us, there's a link to our Patreon in the description below. Some benefits include getting access to new episodes up to a month in advance. There's also links to USARK and USARK Florida. If you're not already a member, please sign up. Enjoy the show. Yeah, man, I figure, this is long overdue, man. Like, I remember hitting you up a long time ago, like well over a year ago.
It's been over a year.
Yeah, because, your profile picture is a jungle carpet, right?
Yeah.
And I think that kind of drew me towards you because I'm a fan of jungles. I only have a modest 2.2.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have like a 20.20 or something. I don't know. Are you into the jungle? Do you have as many jungles as you have Papuans or IJs?
No. I always say if you keep count, you're a hoarder. And so I just don't keep count of everything. But yeah, the IJs definitely have taken over. And so I got a lot of those. And for jungles would probably be the second most that I keep.
Okay. Do you have an idea, like a ballpark range of how many jungles you have?
Doing real quick math, 2, 4, 7, 10, somewhere between 10 and 12 between holdbacks and grow-ups and actual breeders. I don't think probably not north of 16, but it's somewhere like 10 to 12, maybe 14.
Okay. All right. So not totally crazy.
Yeah.
The Papuans you're crazy with. Well, I guess all right. So for the sake of this episode, because I don't want to step on anybody's toes here. Are we calling them Papuans or are we calling them IJs? It's guest preference.
Yeah, I always call them IJs, but that's just literally kind of as a joke or a dig. I talked to Nick and we always joke that he'll call them IJs and I'll call them Papuans just for our phone call, even though he calls them Papuans. And it's all in fun. It's just another common name in reality.
Yeah.
But for IJs.
So you're kind of an old school carpet keeper, right? You've been doing this for quite a while. So the whole Papuan carpet thing is fairly recent in comparison to that, right?
Correct. I got my first IJs in like 2008-10 era.
Okay.
And had known about them for a little while before that. But I got my my first Morelia would be Bredli, and that was 07, 08.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So you've been into it for almost 2 decades.
Yeah. It's crazy to think about.
Man, do you still have those animals?
No. So had to uh rehome the breadlie, and then those IJs. What did I do with those? I don't remember where they went. But to new homes, just kind of as you hold stuff back and get different things, and then you know you want to expand and have this flavor, that flavor slash bloodline background unknown. And so it was kind of that with some of the first IJs that I got.
Okay. And so you got into it in like 2007, 2008, and I mean and you went right into carpets and Morelia, and so have you just been just enamored with Morelia and carpets since the beginning?
Yes. So actually, Rory Gresco, who's a known name in the industry for a few, he does a lot of Amazon Trebos these days. He bred, I think it was the first Axanthic Malucans. He gets credited with that. Just didn't know they were Axanthics at the time. Um, if it wasn't Malucans, it would have been Tanabars, but I'm pretty sure he did the first Malucans, like in the US. And he had some IJs and he showed me the adults. And when the babies hatched, they were neon red. And I was like, is that a mutation? He's like, no, they hatch red and then they change.
Mm.
And after that, I was just hooked instantly.
Mm. So is that kind of the draw is that you don't know what they're going to end up looking like, that when you're seeing those red babies, you don't know what they're going to turn into?
In part, yes, but it was just one of those, like, I thought it was so fascinating. And, green tree pythons did the same, but it was just, I don't know, it was different. I didn't know that carpet started, um, you know, depending on which one, in the case of an IJ red, and then go through their ontonic color change and look different.
Yeah.
It just blew my mind. And then I started learning about jungles. They don't hatch with their color, and it just pulled me in. And seeing breadlie, same thing. They hatch kind of gray, and then they get all that red as they grow. It just
Mm.
instantly blew my mind. I don't know. I guess for a green tree python, I was like, well, yeah, that's because of where it lives. It needs to do that. And I just had this different idea at the time for carpets.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that well, okay, so in your experience, do the IJs sort of peak with their color and then start to go, you know how it is with like jungles where jungles get like really good looking and
Mhm.
then they start their kind of downward slope, not necessarily downward slope, but they don't have like, they definitely, in my opinion, they have like a peak where it's just
Yeah.
like the blackest black, the yellowest yellow, and then, maybe the yellow starts to get a little bit of brown on it, or, a little darker pigmentation in it. Is it similar with the IJs?
Um, yes and no. So you always have those that, will grow up and you're like, man, this looks really good. And then a handful of years later, and I hate to say because it sounds like such a negative thing to say about the snakes, but it's like blah after.
Mm.
But there's also those that have maintained their color and their look. And it's just a matter of every time, they shed freshly, they look good again, and then they hold that color. So I think it just depends between each individual animal. Part of this, though, for what I'm doing specifically with the IJs, is pretty new in the sense that, we got guys like Nick, tip my hat to him because he's got lots of lineage and generation after generation of selectively breeding, line breeding. And even if he's not intentionally line breeding for something specific, which is crazy to say, he's always looking for something.
Yeah.
Um, you got history. So you can look at what the parents look like, the grandparents, some great grandparents and great 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 grandparents. For me, some of this stuff is a wild caught import, and I'm producing an F1, an F2, and that's what I got to go off of. And unless I kept the entire clutch, it's hard to gauge, is this line a blah line or a really good looking line?
Mm. So how do you determine that going into it and starting a project? This episode is brought to you by Chewy. Most people think of Chewy for dog and cat food, but if you keep reptiles, you should absolutely be using them too. Chewy carries everything from all the brands you trust, like Exoterra, Arcadia, Zoomed, and everything in between. Live feeders to frozen rodents, enclosures, substrate, heat lamps, thermostats, water bowls, misters, and more, all in one place, shipped straight to your door. Sign up for Chewy Plus today, free for 30 days. You get free shipping, 5% rewards, and exclusive offers. I use Chewy, and you should too.
So we all say, if I knew then what I know now, um,
Yeah.
and so I would have kept a lot more back. I have kept tabs on stuff that I've sent out to people, and we still talk. The IJ community is pretty small. As Scott Borden says, it's the dark side of things because they're not jungles. But now moving forward, I've taken things, the last decade I've been the IJ guy or import guy, what have you. But now I'm really taking things seriously in terms of going to be holding back entire clutches and really following things through thoroughly and looking at how all of the babies develop to get an idea. And
Yeah.
most of us know just in a couple generations, you could really refine a look. It doesn't take, to really dial it into whatever you want. Sure, that's going to take, a decade plus. But in just a few short years, you could actually get, something pretty nice and refined in a short period of time.
How do you house all these animals? I mean, that's so many holdbacks. And I listened to your episode on NPR, and I think you said like what, like 50 or 60 IJs, which is just
Yeah.
I'm sitting there thinking like, oh my God, like how do you house all those animals? That's so many animals.
It's definitely quite a bit. I, I make posts that like selling this to make more room for IJs. So it's just kind of that give and take. I've slowly weaned out a lot of other things to make room
Mm,
for them. But I have a quarantine room of how I keep those guys that come in fresh. Um, when I first get them, that's separate and isolated. Got to run fecals, got to, deworm and all this stuff that comes with it. And then eventually, it's long term captive and clean. I always
mm,
view it as it's dirty, don't cross contaminate. Um, but racks have helped, and I'm actually going away from that and doing caging as we speak, and more streamlined in terms of moving the reptile room around.
mm. Yeah. I mean, I think about IJs and just carpets in general, and how they like to perch and they like to get up off the ground and everything, and so like I often think about them as being, in my opinion, the way I keep, like they love being up off the ground. Like they just seem so ill suited for a tub,
Right.
so like so that volume of animals in cages, and then the fact that you're like steering towards cages, it's like that's monumental. That's a huge undertaking.
Yeah. I was fortunate that I have a friend who has built a lot of racks from a hand saw and on his hands and knees, and then eventually got, table saw and all that good stuff. Um, and he's built some unique racks that, one of them is for like length, it's about the size of a V70.
Hmm.
However, for width and depth, it's significantly larger. It's about 70 quarts when you do the math of the dimensions of the tub. And
Okay.
so you could put stuff in there for them to perch. I've done both, and I find that a lot of small IJs will perch, but a lot of the adults, it varies. I have stuff that's in 4x2x2s right now, and very rarely do they perch. It's
Interesting.
as a percentage of the time.
Wow.
And I'm pretty dialed into things in terms of like, I'm that nut job that goes and checks on them at, 2 a.m., 3 a.m. My sleeping schedule's kind of out of whack.
Yeah,
And
it sounds
so
like it.
I'm checking at 2, 3 in the morning, and then again at like 7, starting the day. There's times where I'm able to come home midday, like for lunch, and I take a peek on them. And so just different hours, different times of the year. And again, as a percentage, I don't find that my adults perch that much.
Interesting. And are you, just out of curiosity, are your jungles the same way?
Um, Jungles vary, but I would say like Veloster when he's set up in a tub, he'll excuse me, in a cage with a perch, he'll perch a little more than like anything else. But that's
Uh-huh.
like the one off. I
Huh.
find that they like the flat platform. If I give them a really tall hide, shelving, they'll utilize that a lot more. And so, some would say, well, that's them perching. But I'd view it differently versus like a branch. They're definitely different than a green tree.
Mhm.
Even my rough scale python, when I put the branch in with her, she wasn't on it very much.
Wow.
Um,
That's crazy. Cause like mine, dude, mine are always, they like, I have like branches on the one side of the enclosure, that's not under the heat lamp. And my jungles are always up there, always, unless there's like two exceptions. If they're in shed, they'll go into their hide, or if they just ate a big meal, they'll go into their hide, which is under the hot spot.
okay.
So it's like that's really interesting. Now, I am curious, like what age do you consider to be an adult too? Because it could be that mine are just younger.
Um, so real quick on that note, it's interesting that you said that yours are on the cool side
Yeah.
perching, because most of my logs are going to be on the warm side. But for a rack that has belly heat, that I mean, it's in part going to still be cool towards the top of the perch.
Sure.
And then stuff that has above heat source, I'm doing these long branches that kind of look like an L for simple visual, where the
Hmm.
peak is at the hot side and then the lower part is on the cool side. But that would be, I don't know, 6 to 8 inches off the ground. And they're not on that very much. What I
Mm.
will find is that specifically with the snakes is they'll go into those logs and kind of almost like it's a burrow or a cave and hang out in that quite a bit
Oh,
over
okay.
their hide. They really like to wedge in.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Yeah, and like my perching area, it is pretty, I guess you could say, complex. Like they kind of overlap, so it's like two support branches and then like a stringer between them. And so they have a lot of places that they can go. And so also like the cages that my Morelia are in are about 2.5 feet tall. They're 30 inches. And so they actually can thermoregulate vertically, like they can go to a lower place and perch to cool off a little bit. But I
yeah,
use basking bulbs too, and my ambient in my house is like 78 during the day. So it gets like it peaks pretty hot in there, even on the warm side, but
yeah,
then it cools down a lot during the day. And I've just been letting that ride, and just kind of testing it out. I mean, I'm just kind of figuring stuff out right now.
yeah.
But yeah, that is very interesting. Oh yeah, but what do you consider an adult? Like what age do you consider an animal to be an adult?
For me personally, when it's reproducing, males you could get to size in about 18 months. I don't do things like that anymore, like I once did. I
Hmm.
feed things a lot more conservatively. I won't use the term maintenance feed because there's sometimes, specifically after breeding a female, that I'm giving her a meal like every 5 days to get some weight back on her. So I evaluate and look at them, cool everything from its first season hatching. So all the babies I'm cooling down every year. So they're going months without food. I've even had clutches that hatched, they never ate. I cooled them down and then come spring, they started eating for me. So
Whoa.
Yeah. But to get back to the question you keep asking, adult size, really right around that like 3 year mark, for pretty much both genders,
Okay.
is kind of what I consider. But again, I say as soon as they're able to breed, it's an adult.
Interesting. Okay, so that what you just said is very interesting to me, and I want to drill into that a little bit. Uh, so okay, so they might hatch out, they might refuse to eat, right? Living off their yolk, metabolism hasn't fully kicked in. Winter comes, they're SOL. Either they ate or they didn't. Now it's
Right.
time to go the winter without food,
Yes.
no matter what.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Wow.
Like, I'm going to offer. It's a matter of paying attention to your animal, because you're going to have
Yeah.
people who hear this and they're going to say, "Oh, so he just neglects them and forgets about them and just crosses his fingers, hopes for the best." I'm going to evaluate. If the animal's starting to look really skinny, like I'm going to lose it, I'm going to have to intervene. Um, if it's not deformed or anything of that nature, it hatched looking healthy, and by all accounts it should have eaten, it just didn't want to. I may offer something in the middle of winter. I'm not turning off heat, I am doing temperature control, room,
Hmm.
which I'm cooling down entirely during the winter. I'm doing heat on night drop, and so shorter days, longer nights, and cold temperatures, but they still have access to eat.
Yeah.
So if they're looking like they're ready to eat, I'm going to offer it, especially if it's a first season. I should specify a lot of this stuff that has gone a winter without ever having a meal was breadlie, which hatched, in late summer to early fall. So
Hmm.
it's not like it's something like I have a clutch of IJs that are halfway through incubation. If they hatch in early April, they're not going to be fed their first meal next next April, next spring. It's
Yeah.
something that I'm confident will eat by come fall time.
Yeah. Okay. So, but even so, with all that, I definitely am not making any implications that you neglect your animals or anything. But, and I know that the animals can take it. I just find it fascinating because so many people, myself included, the first year of life, first 2 years of life, maybe even more, people forego that fast, and they say, well, anything under 2 years old, I feed it the whole year through. And then after that, I start doing the cooling and the fasting and things like this. So I have diamond pythons that went one winter on food of their regular, like every week, 2 weeks, feeding on, mice and things like that. Uh, and then come that spring, I moved them outside last spring. So they're coming up on a year outside. And this winter, at, a year and a half old, they went with no food from October 26th until last week. So, basically the beginning of March.
Yeah. And how
Um,
do they look?
fan fucking tastic.
Right?
Yeah. Yep. They're totally fine. But I find it interesting that you do that because I like listening to people that keep snakes and specifically Morelia and everything. And it doesn't seem like that's a very common thing to do.
No, I still think as a whole, the hobby has this mindset of feed it like as much as possible. And if it's willing to take a meal, it needs to eat.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter who you talk to. It's just kind of that mindset as a whole, or as a community, the percentage. We have extremes that I've talked to people who have worked for ball python facilities who are feeding literally a small meal. It's crazy when you hear some of the numbers of some of these big breeders, but some guys are feeding Monday through Friday a meal every day to their ball pythons to get them to
No.
weight. Yeah. Um, some
Oh
are
my
doing 3 a
God.
week. It's insane, and
That's so
confirmed,
unhealthy.
trusted sources. But we wonder, why, and it's to chase that gene, that dollar, and be the first to do it. and what have you. So there's that extreme. But
That's
fasting,
neglect. That is negligence. That is terrible. I like that. That is insane, dude. I could not imagine.
yeah,
Like, for a fact, you're killing that animal.
right. We know that, I mean, the information's out there. Every time you feed, their organs enlarge, and um in the moment they talk about, shrinking down and this, that, the other. But the point is, everything grows. Snake is different than a mammal. So when it eats, it's completely different. And yeah, when you're power feeding like that, it's insane. uh, but the information is out there that fasting is good.
Yeah.
And snakes have much slower metabolism. It would be different if I had a monitor or something that was diurnal that eats a lot more.
Yeah.
Different metabolisms. It's not like it's as simple as, applying this to every reptile.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, even monitors, like you see these monitors in captivity and they're huge. And you see that and you're like, they have the fat stores like at the base of their tail and everything. And
uh-huh.
you see that and you're like, maybe like, and that's like eating 3 to 5 times a week,
Yeah.
and then you're like, maybe that's too much even, maybe they're getting too much.
Or you'll see them with like the big armpits, the fat being stored there in the
Yeah.
underarms slash, I don't know, high ribs and that area. My mindset, though, in part, is not every person that gets a snake from me is going to have any interest in breeding it, right? Some people literally want one carpet and that's their pet, that's their display for their office, their living room, bedroom, or what
Mm.
have you, or their one carpet for their reptile room. Um, and so, even if it's a pet, think of it like a person who never works out. Should they be eating a ton, as much as someone who's hitting the gym and trying to, bulk up?
Yeah.
And
No.
so that pet snake, how often should it eat? If, as a whole, how many people are pulling out their snakes for what we'll call enrichment? How many people are giving the perch so they could climb? And how much are the snakes really moving as a percentage? With that said, how much would they move in the wild? Because if you argue that they stay in a pretty small area in the wild, I'm not saying that all snakes do. I'm just saying, if that was your argument, is that they're not going to move a ton in the wild, well, how often or how rarely are they coming across food anyways? And what does
Mm.
that food look like? Is it a malnourished, dehydrated lizard, frog, bird? Or is it a fatty, captive bred mouse or rat that
Yeah.
they're being fed every Tuesday because that's feeding day?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
same thing for the guys and gals who are looking to get something from me to breed. I say it's, in my opinion, less likely to be shocked by going through a winter with you, plus the stress um, of shipping, which for carpets, for the most part, don't. They just are bulletproof. Um, but I say it's already been cooled one winter with me if it makes it through. Some snakes are going
Mm.
to sell before winter comes, but I still recommend to everyone, yeah, cool them from um, season one.
Mm. Interesting. Yeah, that's that is a different perspective. Not a lot of people preach that. A lot of people preach, hey, you got to feed these animals because you could stunt their growth. You could, things like that. And I feel like that kind of makes people feed out of fear then, because people are like, well, I don't want a tiny snake. I don't want this stunted little thing, which I don't think any of us are going to end up with at any point in time.
Yeah,
Uh, but I kind of, it's very rare to hear this perspective,
right.
of fasting that first winter. But in nature, if they're in these areas, especially like diamond pythons where they're from, do you think that they're eating during, the winter? No, there's no chance in hell
Yeah.
they're eating during the winter.
They're probably bunkered down, and even when they go out to warm up, I mean, what's really running by that they're going to snag? Um, So it's relative. I will also add the caveat that I'm not a doctor. I'm not a vet. There's a chance that I'm doing it all wrong, guys.
Yeah.
So only time will tell. But when I look at clutch sizes and fertility, I'm not, I've only ever had a female slug out on me one time. And I think, I don't remember the context, but I don't think she was ready to breed, or I didn't think she was ready to breed. And she cycled and she laid a clutch of slugs. But other than that, for the amount of slugs I get, usually I'm getting, the clutch I just got was 10 out of 10 from an IJ.
Wow.
And I've had IJs that have laid, closer to 20 eggs. Those were big females that, again, one of my first IJs that I kept, I made huge. She was like 6-7 feet,
Oh
eating,
my God.
large to jumbo rat. Again, we don't know what we don't know. And, now
Jumbo rats, dude. Like you said that, and I'm like sitting there thinking about a jumbo rat going into a carpet python.
Yeah.
Oh my word.
Exactly. But again, when you're thinking, when you're young and dumb, and you're thinking, I just got to make a big snake and I want to get a lot of babies and this, that, the other. And she's laying a lot of eggs for you. Like, it's cool. But then you think about it, it's like, yeah, this isn't normal, especially
Yeah.
having done a lot of imports now and seeing what stuff comes in, size wise, and then feeding them. And I'm like, some of this stuff just stays smaller.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I mean, you see like those Australian like snake catcher videos where they're pulling these giant carpets out of ceilings and whatever out of toilets all over the place. I've seen them in fish tanks, everything, and they're huge. Some of them are huge, man. Where you see them and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe that's a carpet python. And then I wonder, are we not keeping them right in captivity? Should they be bigger? But then again, is that a 30-year-old animal? Is that a 20-year-old animal that has just been slowly growing to this point now where it's 7 feet long and it's got this monstrous dragon head on it? I mean, Eric Burke just sent me some pictures of I think coastal carpets. I think mostly out in the wild, just to show me examples of what wild coastals look like. Because I just asked him about that. And the heads on these things don't even look like anything that we have. They look
Massive.
they look like Gila monsters. They look like dragons. Their heads are just these huge, muscular, intimidating things. That makes me wonder too, like what are we getting wrong? You just said like you don't know if you're doing it the right way. I don't think any of us know if we're doing anything the right way.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all kind of guessing, like, unless you put a tracking device into a snake the day it hatches, a little collar or leash, a tag,
Yeah.
And followed it around, which definitely isn't natural. How often is it eating? There's a guy, Ralph, rest his soul. He did a lot of Amazon tree boas, but we had conversations where he would talk about, like, look at the carpet pythons that people are selling and look at how big their body is and how tiny their head is. And there's got to be some form of correlation to some of these older animals that have that huge, massive head.
Yeah.
And a lot of my older carpets, I have some older IJs, older Bredli, older jungles now that I, acquired in 2011. I think they're 2010s, 2011s,
Holy
like
shit.
15. Yeah, exactly. And now, just now, in the last couple of years, their head size, it's not massive, but it's massive compared to like everything else in the collection. I have seen those big monster heads, especially, get a big Bredli or coastal. And I think those guys got, a bigger head as a whole. But yeah, it's different when they're older.
Yeah.
And same thing, it's not like I'm power feeding, so that's not the connection. It's just an age thing. I think it's
Yeah.
similar to humans. When does a man or a woman, max out on their height? When does
Yeah.
their brain stop developing? When does their body stop developing? And it's different for everyone a little bit, but we usually see growth spurts between the ages of in adolescence, 10 and 15, that they're not maxing out, but those are the common years of growth spurts.
Hmm.
um and then we seem to kind of stop growing for sure by the time we're age 21. And for some it's as early as 16. They never grew another inch,
Yeah.
um, if not younger. And so when you do that math, sure, we're mammals. How long are we going to live? 60 years on average, something like that. And what's a python going to live in captivity?
Yeah.
And we know about the 20-year-old snakes, but when the argument would be, when do they stop growing? When does the rest of them, if we develop, parts of our body stop growing after a certain age, but the rest of us stopped, 5-10 years before that?
Yeah.
Is it the same for snakes? Their head will keep growing and stop at a certain age.
Yeah. It's all
Let
good
us know,
points.
Nick.
Yeah. He knows. He knows.
You know.
Well, I can't remember if we recorded the conversation or if it was a private conversation, but I told him, I was like, dude, I can't believe these diamond pythons I have, got into the 30s Fahrenheit. They haven't eaten since October and they look fantastic. There was
Yeah.
no loose skin, there was nothing.
Yeah.
And they kind of got through the cooling period where I was telling Eric this, where they were coming out and basking at the beginning, and then towards the end they were like, I'm done. They just hid, and that was it. And
Yeah.
and I would go days without seeing them, and I'd check on them. Okay, they're here. They would just look at me like, dude, go away. I don't want you here. And then all of a sudden it warmed up. It started raining. I'm in Florida. And now they're out, and it's like, all right, it's time to go. You guys get food now, and now they're out basking all day. It's dude, it's so interesting watching it, especially outside. But Morelia is so cool. I think that I kind of want to get into, like, how do you cool your IJs? Like, how cold do you get them?
So I'm in Southern California, and we don't know what winter is. Like, our favorite thing is watching the rest of the country go through winter. Like, I didn't check the temp today, but it's for sure going to be in the 70s.
Yeah.
And same thing, like the snowpack that we got has come and went. It melted already. It's gone. Like, there isn't any more snow up there. And they were filled because we got, that solid week of rain. I think that was in January. But it's gone now. And cold for us, like, it's not really cold, even though, funny enough, I'm a true SoCal guy where below 70 and I'm bitching. I rather be 120 and melting than, below 70. I'm that guy. So in terms of the process, I kind of look at the weather and evaluate, but I start going off food. I would say for sure I'm food cycling, but we get, triple digit November days.
Wow.
Exactly. And so how do you cool stuff? My buddy's breeding Elafe carinata, the king rat snakes, and he's trying to give his snakes a winter, but he can't get them down for winter despite them being empty of food because it's so hot. Where do you cool them? You take them out of their cage to colubrids to cool them, but you can't anywhere in the house, because even if you crank your AC to manually cool the entire house or an entire room, because outside is 90 degrees in November, December, January.
Yeah.
And the night drop.
So how do you do it then?
So what I've done is I have a mini split on my room, and I'll just drop it down, to like 68 now.
Okay.
I just barely hit the 60s. Keep in mind, they still have heat source. Sure, it's cycling on and off. And so as a percentage of the room getting cold, and that's got to get through the glass, or plexiglass on the cage. How well is that insulated? And so by the time it actually gets into the cage, how long are they at temperature? And I don't keep, close enough, like, to see. I don't have a thermostat in there in that regard of how long is it dropping down. I think Tony Doyer does a really good job at keeping the overnight tracking of the temperature to see how long it's down at temp and things of that nature. And that was even before he was keeping his snakes outside. He did a good job at doing that. But mine, I just have on thermostats cycled. It's mainly, so I try and follow weather. I start my process anywhere between September and October, depending on what that month looks like, of slowing down food, gradually starting to bring temps down. So that way, ideally, and it's not always that way, but ideally by that October, November timeline, I'm cool. I've given them a nice chill because the IJs will go early.
What are your nighttime temperatures during the summer?
In the room?
Yeah.
I'm usually doing about 74, 72 for a nighttime temp. So it's not that much different, but the difference would be that the heat inside the cage is still going to be in the 80s. So that nighttime temp isn't going to drop very much.
Yeah, I really like hearing this information because I often wonder, like, am I ever going to even breed my snakes, or am I just, because I keep mine with lamps, so lamps off and there's no more heat, and my wife and myself, need the house to be pretty cool to sleep, so it's our nighttime temperature in the house is 72. So all the snakes in the entire house are 72 degrees unless they're in a rack growing up, and so once they're in their cages, though, it's 72 at night. That's the temperature of the animal. And then now during the winter, though, it gets considerably colder. It's going down to 67, 68 degrees.
Yeah. So my brother calls me a psychopath, but I like in the winter, which it's not that cold, to set the night house temp to 76. I am running a fan, sleep in a, what is that? Like that mesh tech material.
Yeah.
Dry fit. I don't know why I was blanking on that. But I like it warm for myself, like we've talked about. But I think you'll do just fine breeding them. I hate saying it, but, and in part, I've only done carpets. And I haven't ever successfully bred ball pythons. I owned some adults, about 10 years ago, and I acquired, I acquired a pair recently from US Arc Auction. And so I'll try those. But with that said, carpets are hardy and easy, but I hate saying that because I've focused solely on that. And so I have that dialed in.
Yeah.
Versus if you're keeping a little bit of everything, is it going to be harder because you're trying to maintain different environments, temps for everything, / you're not giving it 100%, where I'm really just carpets and a pair of ball pythons.
Yeah, I guess that is, I do keep a little bit of everything. I mean, out in that main area right now, it's just carpets and Antaresia, spotted pythons, so that's kind of my cooler area. This room that I'm in right now gets a bit hotter, and this is where I have basically all boas and Timor pythons. That's all that's in here. I guess, my hope is that, I look at somebody like Lucas Lee, who's able to just like bam, 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 like hit all these different things that are so incredibly different in 1 year. And then I'm like, okay, maybe with enough guidance and enough, intuition and good vibes and knowledge, maybe I'll be able to do the same thing one day. I don't know. I just got to keep hanging out with Lucas. I got to talk to him more, I guess.
Yeah. He went to Australia to teach them how to do it. That guy's just been killing it.
He was telling the diamond pythons in nature how to breed.
Yeah, he's like, this is really how you guys should be doing it. No, Lucas is a great dude, but yeah, he's just like, and same thing. I don't want to say luck, but like it's just like everything he's put his hands on, he's just had great success with. It's like he's touched it and like, oh, there's another clutch.
Yeah, he's
But
incredible.
again, it's not by accident. We do hear of people, with the one-off pair of snakes that are like, I didn't even know I had a male and a female. There's a clutch of eggs. What do I do?
Yeah.
And you got to ask, did their snakes go through any form of a cycle, whether it was a food cycle in some fashion? Were they on vacation and they didn't feed the snakes for a week or two and that did it? Or, at the right time of the year? Or did their room get a little bit cooler? Or is it the same nonstop and the snakes still cycled?
Yeah. Yeah, it really makes you wonder. And it also makes me wonder, like the Nicks and Ryans, they're keeping all their animals in one room, right? So everything is on the same temperature. Like they don't have I know like Ryan has one room, right? Like it's not he doesn't have separate individual rooms for, these ones get colder and these ones get warmer. And, things like that make me wonder, if I'm just like way overthinking things.
Oh, and in some fashion, we are all for sure overthinking things. There's that aspect, but that's I would say in part good, right? We're all trying to give the best to the animal. We're trying to be successful with this. You could argue that a snake is likely healthy and happy if it's reproducing for you, right? There's something off if it's not. And that doesn't mean you're keeping it bad, but you might not be keeping it the right way if it's not reproducing for you. And the one that comes to mind, I hate to say it, is Bull and I. Quite a few people, well, relatively speaking, quite a few people have tried it and not had success. And why is that? And that's just one of the things that comes to mind right away.
Why do you think that is?
Lots of theories. I just saw one recently, and it's online, so people could find it. That I guess magic formula is 2.1 will get the job done. I don't, I didn't pull that thread enough to see, is that factual? Was that just one statement? Was that just the fluke thing? And that person actually did something different, again, with relative to cycling, food, or temperature, and they just so happen to have 2.1.
Yeah.
I don't even know the context. Were they keeping 2.1 together or introducing, for a day and then separating? I couldn't tell you. It's just something I had seen in the last 6 months. And I'm pretty sure, I don't remember who it was, but I'm pretty sure he got eggs and babies.
Yeah, that makes me concerned, because I had 2.1 Timors. And I was thinking, like, maybe this will be, a way to be successful. But I mean, thankfully, Ryan just did it with one pair, and so, I'll definitely have to be getting on the phone with him once that time comes,
Yeah.
Him and Lucas.
Yeah. The goats.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I guess, Lucas is turning into a baby goat.
Yeah.
So what is it that has you like so laser focused with IJs, and like what is keeping you locked in and so focused on them? Is it just the untapped potential there?
I'd say in some aspect, sure. But I think it really is like that first time for anything could be great for a lot of people. And it was the first carpet, at least that I recall. I mean, sure, I could have come across one at a show or something. But it was the first time, and specifically that I recall seeing in person those babies hatching and being red. And that just, it blew my mind.
Yeah.
And seeing what they look like. And just believing to my core that they were always underrated.
Mm.
And then, learning that I could get them from Indo and imported. You can't do that with anything else, not legally at least. And I'm not going to try it on my own. Um,
Yeah.
so, man, the 80s to be around then, huh?
Yeah, yeah, right.
Pre 9/11 flights and X-ray machines. But anyways, um, knowing that I could still import them and seeing all the different looks, I've posted some stuff of a tub of IJs that I got, and it's a different look. And again, back then I didn't appreciate it. Yeah, I should have, been a little more careful on what I sent to people. There's some snakes that it could have been something, right? And could have been, and not to be the hope or the dream, even just to line breed, it could have been something, right? Look at Ivory
Mm.
Jungles, what Nick's done with that. And sadly, you send them to people and not with any strings attached, just like I'm sending this to you, you bought it and I want to follow it. I would like babies from that. I can't keep them all. And I also have the mindset that I can't cherry pick and hoard everything because my house could catch fire. My house could have a massive power outage, a virus, something could take out my collection. And then
Mm.
everything that was stockpiled here would just be toast. And what a waste, right?
Yeah.
Especially present day now, fast forward, it's really hard to get import IJs. Used to be able to get 50 and 100 lot babies. And now in a year's time, I'm lucky if I could get 4 to 6 animals.
Wow.
From different vendors, different importers. I have a lot of different sources um, that are doing things, and I have access to through friends who own shops and what have you. But it's hard to get them. Things have changed, and I don't know why exactly. I've heard things from people, but it's just I don't know if maybe they're not going after that, and they're going off after the things that are more lucrative. Um, but the aspect of what's kept me, dialed into the IJs is seeing the different looks, knowing that sure something could pop up, but I could do a lot with line breeding.
Mm.
And tip hat again to Nick for setting that foundation of sticking through a project. Because whether you hate ivories or love them to your core, it's something that it's different and it's neat.
Yeah.
I have one from him and yeah, it's sure he didn't send me the best one like he did for Brandon Wheeler because he likes him more, but but mine is, it's nice and it's different. And I have to look at the records for what generation it is. Um, yeah, he's done a lot with it, and it would be cool to do that with the IJs.
Mm. Yeah, it's that would be really cool, right? To have something epic that has your name attached to it. I mean, that makes me okay. So I've heard Eric talk about poison ivy,
Mhm.
and I've heard him talk about it numerous times, but I'm often in my car, right? And I'm just like, oh, poison ivy, whatever. I haven't really thought about it. He sent me pictures the other day, and holy crap, dude.
Yeah,
Holy crap,
that's the
dude.
dark
Like,
side.
yeah, like I saw that and I'm like, whoa. Like it almost like one of them almost looked like a Bolin's python,
Yeah.
with like those like the labial sort of, I'm just using words here. I don't know if I'm using the right words, but like the labial almost like striping or banding. I don't know what you would say, but there was just like the black and white and it looked like a skull head. And I'm just like, I was blown away by it. And I'm like, that's really effing cool. Like if I were to get into pop ones, IJs, however, whatever you want to say, that would be a direction that would be really cool to go in. Cause that's nuts.
Yeah. And it's neat. And he's close to figuring out like the mode of inheritance. And he and I have talked about that in depth. Um, and so that's again, that's just one. the things that you could do with them. Um, uh, do you keep corn snakes at all?
No,
Are you familiar with the gene like red factor in corn
no,
snakes? Have
but
you heard of it?
can you explain it to me?
So like, and I'm not that familiar with it, but it would be, people have related it to, there's red factor and there's another one that are like similar to, I think I'm getting that right. Similar to yellow belly in ball pythons. Like some of the first yellow bellies that came in, it was a normal looking snake, but the belly happened to be slightly yellow. And it's not like, they vary, of course, but some of those first ones that came in, when you look at it side by side, sure, you're like, that's yellow. But it's not, and you had to look at them closely to even
Mm,
spot that. Um, and so I do have that kind of in my line of view, is how many things are overlooked, instead of the tongue being this color, black or blue, it's actually pink, and so that's a marker for something else.
mm,
The eye color, um, belly color, and any number of things that we may be overlooking, and then with some selective breeding or a super form, like, have you seen a super yellow belly? The
uh,
fire, or is that fire? No, fire is its own thing.
I don't know.
But fire, for sure, you take a fire and breed it to another one, and it makes an all white snake.
Yeah, yeah,
But by itself, it's like it's not that different.
yeah,
And so, how many of these things are we missing, or we could throw with something else,
yeah.
and then it really does wonders. Um, it's funny because I usually use a two gene reference. Um, with ball pythons, that I'm blanking on right now, the one that I usually default to. But how many of these things are like, it's so minor? Yellow belly, again, we'll go back to, and you pair it with something else, like a really different gene, that, right out of the egg, you could tell like that's different. Whereas yellow
Yeah.
belly is just kind of But you put those two together and it's just like, holy smokes, I would have never expected this combo from these two snakes.
Yeah, well that's like the I have an IMG Motley boa,
Mhm.
and it's just like it's just it's crazy. It's the blackest snake you could,
Yeah.
that you could lay eyes on. And then, I guess that the next step up from there would be what they call the black devil, and I believe that's anery as
Yeah.
well. So it removes any brown pigmentation, and so you don't get that. Because like my guy, he like if you take him out in the sun, he's black, but then you'll see like these sort of chocolate tones in there, which
Mhm.
honestly I think is beautiful. But if you had a black devil and you had that total absence of pigmentation, then it just creates a deeper, more black, and I guess it would be like a gray that would come through rather than a brownish tone.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, really wild stuff, and like that combo is really crazy. And then you put that with something else. You put IMG with, hypo, or even like you see people doing it with what's the other one? Albino,
Yeah.
and you're like, this is really nuts.
Hypo IMG is a really badass combo.
It is.
It's so weird and different, especially I have a friend who has one, and every time that thing sheds, it's just like, I don't know, it's not what I would have envisioned or expected. Got
Yeah.
two genes that are trying to do the opposite of each other, quite literally.
Yeah. 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 Isn't that nuts?
Yeah. But I mean, even take that example. Call albino, sharp albino. Um, and somebody, sure, they threw two albinos together, or to test it if it was related or not, and you get normals. And sure, those who know what to look for, you could tell they are different. um, but how about anery and type 2 anery? And I mean, isn't that just as different, or isn't it just the eyes being slightly different or something, if you're looking to tell the difference between the two lines?
Mm. Yeah. I have no idea.
I don't remember.
I'm so terrible with morphs, dude.
And this is me, like, someone's going to be like, no, you're wrong. Just stay in your lane with carpets. But if I recall correctly, it was something.
You're like, look, I've
minor.
never bred ball pythons, but let's talk about ball python morphs, all right?
Yeah, that guy. I'm that guy. Reel it back.
Are you turning into a ball python guy?
Definitely not. No. Said it here first. Documented. No. But I do want to check them off the list. You know, there's quite a few animals that like I want to breed and say like I did that. There's, you know, it'd be cool to produce, you know, breed 2 different morphed ball pythons, which actually have multiple genes, and see what pops out. Similar to I want to do Amazon tree boas for that same reason.
Interesting. Now with the Amazons, do you already have them?
No, I've kept them before for, you know, a year or 2 at a time, and then got rid of them to focus on more carpets back then. That was 2011, 12, 13 era, probably.
Wow. Did you get out of keeping, or have you stayed in it this entire time?
No, I only went a lull of like 09 to 11 without keeping. Had to get rid of the first red line that I had at that timeline in IJs, and then got back into it shortly after. So it was just that lull. But even then, I think it was just my living situation. I think I had gargoyles and crested geckos, maybe a veiled chameleon, but I didn't have the snakes.
Okay.
But after that,
what are some of the biggest things, like, because you've been in the hobby for so long, what are some of the biggest things that have changed over the years since you first got into it?
More keyboard warriors and more like fights and stuff about how to do it right. And, you know, this way, that way, and like alliances, I'd say.
Who do you align yourself with?
Who?
Yeah.
Everybody now.
Yeah.
You know, for a while, I don't think it was any secret, but me and Riley weren't talking. And then I just kind of went ghost on like everybody, and I was just keeping snakes. You know, some people would hit me up. They're like, "Do you still keep carpets?" Like, even Nick called me. He's like, "Dude, are you still in the hobby?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Like, look, send some pictures. I've been busy. I've been busy doing other things like working, getting a house, and getting stuff dialed in, and remodeling the building out the reptile room. You know, when I first got the house, and now I'm doing a second remodel in 5 years' time, and hopefully this will be the final remodel because shit's expensive.
Yeah.
But now I talk to everybody. I have a different mindset. You know, I wasn't always the most mature, politically correct, not literally politics, just like sometimes I'd say things that weren't the brightest, or maybe came off wrong, rubbed people wrong. And I think just naturally growing and keeping more snakes, more time under my belt, and seeing what really matters. It's like the reason you and I are talking is because of this hobby. And it's like what really matters. Like at the end of the day, the animals, you know, whether you have a wife and kids or not, like different things that we normally wouldn't have come across each other. You know, you're in Florida, in Southern California. What's the likelihood that we would have met otherwise? It's through this hobby. And so I think people forget it, and then egos get involved, and again, alliances. And it's like, oh, well, you don't talk to that person. I'm close with them, so now I don't talk to you.
Yeah.
And a lot of that does stem from some of the guidance I've had from older keepers. Todd was a big one. When he got off social media, he was still breeding snakes, and I was, you know, helping him move them. But it was what matters is breed snakes and sell snakes if you want to sell them, or breed them and give them away to friends, or breed them and keep them if that's what you're looking to do. But it's the animals. The drama don't really matter.
Yeah.
So in Riley have buried the hatchet. There wasn't really anyone else that I had a falling out with. I mean, maybe you could say Tony and I weren't the closest, and we talk. Um,
I love Tony.
yeah,
He's a great dude.
yeah, and he's got some nice yellow anacondas.
He does. So
Yeah.
what was it with you and Riley? Were you guys just in competition with the IJs and the Popwins? Was it just that you called them different names and then you hated each other?
Yeah. He called them Popwins, I called them IJs, and we swore to never talk again. No, it was just like a difference of opinions. We did things differently. There was things that he did that I didn't agree with, and that I did that he didn't agree with. And then it just kind of like the void just kept getting bigger. The elephant in the room, I guess. Like we wouldn't say each other's names, wouldn't really communicate anything. And it wasn't ever like drama. I don't think he ever called me names, that were that bad online. And same thing. It was just one of those like he's really into IJs. I'm really or he's into Popwins. I'm into IJs.
They're different animals, really.
So with that said, like we should have been closer, and it was one of those like we just didn't talk because we had a falling out. And again, it wasn't like this brutal war or anything. It was just like for what we kept, we should have been talking and communicating more.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, because he does sort of the same thing, right? Where he like imports wild caught animals and things like that. So it's like you guys do like a similar thing.
Yeah. And what's funny is like that's not bad in any ways. I always say competition is great for a lot of things.
Yeah.
One is when you're competing with someone, especially when you're friends with them and you win or something, you get to poke the bear. You get to talk to them and be like, hi, I beat you to this, or I did this. But then it's like, when you look at some of the stuff that I have imported, I'm like, dude, this is the best out there, period, bar none. And then he's like, check this out. And I'm just like, you motherfucker. Like, damn, like I would love to have that. Like, how much? And he's like, no, like, I'll let you know when I get babies. And so like, for the amount of people that are out there in the carpet community and that keep IJs as seriously as us, again, we should have been talking this whole time. And I'll credit Todd to that, because Todd actually talked to both of us before he passed, and he was close with both of us, and he wanted us to bury the hatchet, and he's like, you guys should be like communicating. You guys both are doing great jobs at what you're doing, and it's just for what, like, again, when you look at the big picture, it's not like this serious drama. It's not like I stole his wife, he stole my wife. Like some of these things, like crazy affairs and drama. He didn't rob me out of my 401k because I gave him 50 grand and he was going to invest it. Like those are real issues, crime and stuff like that. Like the drama that we had was childish, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And so, around the time that Todd passed, we buried the hatchet and said, this is bigger than us. He wanted us to talk, and now he and I are able to share stories about Todd, because we were both very close to Todd.
Nice.
Todd never had anything negative to say to him other than like a joking manner, like you would, riff any of your friends.
Sure.
And vice versa. And again, hatchet's buried. I actually helped connect him with someone that's from my part of town who they had like a little same thing. It wasn't, I hate to say drama, but like they had a little, like they weren't talking and it was over something so small. And I was able to get them to talk, and they did a transaction that worked out for both of them. Riley sold a snake and the guy bought a snake that he wanted. But otherwise, without, kind of helping them bury that hatchet, Riley may still have that snake for sale, and that guy may still be shopping for a snake. Like, how dumb.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of, I feel like we do so much better when we collaborate and help each other than when we don't talk to each other and things like that, and you can even see that, it's like, like I was worried that MJ from Trap Talk wouldn't like me, and so like I just stayed away from him because I in my mind was like, MJ's not going to like me. He's going to think I'm a poser and like I'm, like all these different things. Right. And I just had like this negative dialogue, and people talk trash about MJ too. So I had like this sort of coming into it, like people saying like MJ, da, 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 and like running their mouth. And then he reached out to me, and he's been like a big brother, and like, he comes on my podcast, I go on his podcast, and we collaborate, and he's done absolutely nothing but to lift me up,
right.
And the people in the hobby and the community respond to that too, because like there's probably more people that listen to both of our shows than there are that don't, that are one side or the other. So when they see that collaboration, they're instantly down, they're like, oh, I want to check that out, so I think that's across the board, is that people like it when people come together and there's positivity and growth rather than decay and drama and, hate and all that.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely something to be said about that. Like the drama, unless you got two people that are just really immature and just really trolling each other for days on end, like how long does it last? There's only so much you could say negative, unless it was literally years of history and each other's dirty secrets, that you're putting all of it out there, that otherwise the argument, the fight, the drama, the name calling is dead after about 2 days. Yeah. And then you're just like, those people don't talk anymore. And I happen to know that. But otherwise, unless you're going to call them, or you're going to always say, like, let's say you and MJ didn't talk. Am I always going to call you and say, what's the drama this week with you and MJ, or vice versa? Like, it's just not a thing. Versus you guys are cool. And then it would be like, oh yeah. And then you mention, hey, yeah, I was talking to MJ. Oh, what's he up to? It's different.
Yeah.
Because the drama thing, most people don't want to deal with it. Like even those drama seekers, they're in it, they're sick and twisted, but it doesn't last very long. And to touch on you saying like you thought that he might have thought you were a poser, it's funny because we're often in our own head, but for all you know, and I know you guys talk, but he would have said, hey, dude, you're a poser. But check it out. Here's how you could be more like legit. Here's how you could be more serious about this. And here's some tips. Even if he did think you were a poser, but it wasn't in a negative light, if that makes sense. Yeah. It was like, here's how I'm going to put you on. Yeah. But you're in your own head thinking, no, he's going to think I'm a poser and not want to deal with me. Yeah. And I think that's, if we could take that mindset and say, someone could do things differently than me, but can I give them help that, again, what does it come down to? What am I helping you with? The benefit of keeping the animals and how to keep them in some fashion. Exactly. You're not going on Trap Talk and he's not going on Expert in the Idiot, and you guys talking about 401ks and diets and working out, like, again, as a percentage. We're talking about reptiles. We're talking about community.
Yeah. We just talk about working out though.
Yeah, I know, right. But you get my point. It's like,
well,
and that's not the point of the talk.
Yeah. And that is, that's the whole reason why we do these things, is to become better keepers and help other people become better keepers, and that's the whole thing. Or to focus on maybe somebody's out there right now and they're like, God, I really like my IJs, but I don't know if I want to focus on them. And then hearing something that you say, or that, Eric says, or Gerard Bosch or Riley or whatever. And then they're like, oh man, you know what? Maybe that is a direction I want to go in. And maybe this is what I need to focus on, and maybe it's my passion too. And then you just have, like you said, then you could look at that as like competition, or you could look at it as more people trying to figure things out and helping it grow and drawing more of a spotlight to it.
Yeah. I mean, we don't know how much our words will impact someone, whether it be in the negative. Like you could crush someone's spirit. Someone says, hey, I'm looking to get an IJ, and the wrong person who doesn't keep them, who's just trying to sell them a jungle, it's like, why do you want to keep that? Blah, blah, blah. And now the guy still doesn't buy a jungle from you, but now he doesn't want an IJ because he thinks you made him feel like an idiot because so much of that is we don't realize how impactful what we say is. And that one hits home for me because I don't know if you remember Jacob Bratz.
No.
He did a podcast for a little while with, I'm blanking on who he did the podcast with. I'm gonna get crap for this one, but he's not currently keeping carpets. If I recall, the last time we spoke, within the last 6 months to a year, he's keeping colubrids now. But like the first episode, I think it was, or within the first 7 episodes, he gave me like my flowers and praise, talking about like he was reaching out to people, and I took the time to explain things to him, and then he started buying snakes from me. And for me, I just thought somebody who messaged me and they didn't have the information. I was just giving information. And then he happened to buy snakes from me. And I still remember sending on Fauna Classified and was it King Snake and maybe NPR, because this was like really before Facebook had blown up. I don't think it was MySpace era, but I don't think it was communicated on MySpace. Anyways, I messaged a bunch of breeders saying, I'm in search of a pure jungle jag.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know that jag came from coastal.
Yeah.
Now, fast forward, and with Nick's book and information, I mean, you can have a pure jungle jag, but it's neither here nor there, just at that timeline. Anyways, point being, I messaged a bunch of people, and there was people who just like laughed or like said good luck or didn't respond at all. And I don't remember, it's going to drive me crazy who it was, but they said, well, you're not going to find a pure one because, and they explained it to me. I'm like, damn, did I look stupid? Like I might as well have done an email blast because I was hot to trot for a jungle jag. And they explained, nope, and here's why. And I was grateful for that. And so that stuck with me. And so, yeah, when Jacob reached out, I explained, and like most people, I'll explain things. And it was cool because it meant a lot to him. And to me, it was just, I'm just explaining.
Dude, I think that is so much more important than any snake breeder realizes when somebody hits you up and they're like, hey, blah, blah, blah. What's this locality? Can I do this? Can I do that? How do you keep this? What are your, and like, if you're getting like 1-word responses, you're essentially telling the person like, hey, you should probably go shop somewhere else.
Right.
And like, I mean, I recently, got a pair of indigodes, and, John Michaels came on the show and gave me his time, and, was really kind. And I wanted to get a black phase, and I got a black phase from Kevin Butts, and Kevin Butts is like super kind and generous with his time and like answered a ton of questions for me. And I'm like, you're my dude.
Yeah.
Like I want to give you $1,000 now for a snake because you took the time. Like, like it makes a big difference. It really does, because that's going to translate after the sale. Right. Even if you're just asking questions because you're curious, all of a sudden then you're like, well, shit, now I just want to buy from you. You're like, you're a good dude. You gave me your time.
Yes.
I want to give you my money.
So that's definitely a big one. Today we're spoiled. We got, AI and chat GPT and all these things to help us research. But before that, in terms of just using the internet, I'm plugging in my phone. Sorry, guys. There we go. Is everyone, not everyone. You got some people that would say, well, do your research. Why do you think they're contacting you? You're the perceived expert. They are doing their research.
Yeah.
And it's always different. Same thing. It's different if they go buy a snake and then they come to you for the research, right? You didn't get the sale, but nonetheless, you have to sometimes put your ego aside and say, am I going to give advice on how to keep someone else's snake that they bought from them? I'll usually point them in the right direction, but I don't like giving advice these days when someone has gotten a snake recently. Excuse me. Recently, like we're talking within the week, and they're asking me how to keep it because I have this mindset, and whether it's true or not is, it doesn't matter, that you get a snake from someone and then you ask me how to keep it, and I give you advice on how I keep mine, and it was different than how that pet shop or breeder or whatever was keeping it, and it shocks it and kills it. My advice just killed the snake. And that's what the person will think. They won't think that they got a sick, unhealthy snake, or that it was a shock of the guy they got it from was keeping it, a hot spot of 92 to 94. So that way they could power feed it. And now I'm telling them, a hot spot of 86, 88. And it's different. Again, and now it's got, an RI, it's stressed out, it's not eating, and it dies. Whose fault is it? So if it's not, within that week type thing, you've had it for a while, you got it from someone else, and you're asking me, something generic and basic or how to breed it, that's different. But if you just got it, I'm always going to say, like, message the person you got it from and just duplicate how they got it. So that way you could not stress the animal so much.
Now, are you forward and upfront with that, or are you dismissive to where they might perceive you as being dismissive or evasive or not wanting to communicate? Or do you straight up say, like, when did you get the animal? Oh, a week ago. You should probably talk to the breeder because I don't want to give you bad advice. Like, how do you do that? Because, like, if you are helpful and you're kind, but you're also upfront in that way, I could imagine that could potentially bring you a customer down the road. Like if they're like, well, now I want a trio or whatever. Let me go to Steven because, he was really helpful, but he wanted me to get the best advice possible.
Right. So usually I'm asking, like, how long have you had it? Where'd you get it from? The basic questions. Right. I try and be efficient with my time. And so if it's something that's simple, I'm going to try and help best I can. And same thing, if it's something that I'm going to brush off, I'm trying to do that. I'm not trying to have this battle where I one up them and I'm brushing them off and I'm shunning them. I'm trying to be efficient no matter which way it is. But I do explain that. I usually ask, like, where did you get it from? Because if they got it from a show and they don't have the business card and I say, go talk to the person you got it from, I've done what? I've just shunned them in their mind. Because I didn't even ask, like, where did you get it from, to hear them say, I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't know. And we've all done, well, at least I have, where you buy something from someone and you throw the card in the bag mixed with all the other cards.
Sure.
And it's like, fuck, who did this come from?
Yeah. Who did this carpet come from? So-and-so Morelia? No, it can't be that one.
Fortunately, I only did that with geckos, but not with, since having carpets, I've kept pretty good records.
Yeah, it is, the whole etiquette thing in the reptile community, it's like, I get some of it, but it also kind of drives me crazy because there's no book. There's no way for anybody new coming in to know what is proper protocol and how you're supposed to handle a situation. And quite often somebody that is new is, if they're dealing with something that is frightening or concerning, logic goes out the window, right? And they're not sitting there thinking, is this, proper etiquette that I reach out to so-and-so, or sometimes too, like, I've been there. I hate saying it, but I've been there where I got an animal from a breeder and the breeder wasn't worth a goddamn bit of use. They were totally useless. Like, and they kind of made you feel that, where it's like, I got my money, you got your snake, figure it out.
Yeah.
Go take the animal to a vet, do X, Y, and Z, and then where is that? Where is the buyer left in that situation where, all right, now I'm just going to have to start reaching out to friends or something to try to figure this out.
Yeah. No, I definitely say, like, if you're having that kind of experience where they were no help, and what's no help? Did you buy something from someone who accidentally bred them and so they can't be helped because they don't know how they did it? Or is it someone who's being a dick? And again, it was all about the sale for them. But I'm
Yeah.
always preaching on you should highlight that, share with the community what that looks like. But my favorite thing, and I've been guilty of it, but specifically with people that I've had talks with, like we're close and kind of just in a rush, and I'm like, yo, do you got this available? Well, I didn't say, hi, how are you? Long time no talk.
Yeah.
And part of that ties into, again, I'm in my head, I'm like, well, we talk often enough. I don't need to do the pleasantries. So I am guilty of it. But when you've never spoken to someone, my favorite is when I get a message that just like dives right in, like I owe them an explanation. And I will say, I'm well, thanks for asking. How are you? So
Yeah.
you had a question. And like I put that
Yeah.
because part of this is, as a percentage, how many of those guys or gals will not be in it in just 3 to 5 short years?
Yeah.
Or they'll switch it up, right? They started with a carpet, but then they're actually at heart, they're a retic guy or a ball python guy or whatever, or gal. And so, but at the same token, if they are in this for the long haul, why wouldn't you want to groom them on just being polite and etiquette?
Yeah.
Having some pizzazz, I guess, so to speak, and someone that you're going to be dealing with or seeing posts because you don't know how deep their pockets are, their parents' pockets are, their business, if they're going to open a business and get a business loan. And so they might be a force to be reckoned with in terms of you're going to see them all the time. Why
Yeah.
wouldn't I want to, teach them how to communicate with people? Because sadly, how many people that are younger than us grew up with an iPad or a tablet? They don't know how to communicate. Their parents didn't do the job for them. And that's a member of our society, sadly. And so am I just going to contribute and then like say, screw off? I don't owe you anything. I'm not going to communicate with you. Or I'm going to say, hey, how are you? I'm well. Thanks for asking, even though they didn't ask, just
Yeah.
to kind of poke in a gentle way. There's a difference between that and saying, hey, asshole, you should have asked me how I'm doing first,
Yeah.
because that's how you communicate. Like, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you get that a lot when you're online, and it is kind of weird and jarring. And maybe it's because of the way, you and I were raised prior to. I don't know your age. You're one of those people, I can't tell how old you are, but I'm 36, or damn near close to 36. So I didn't grow up with a phone. I didn't have a phone
Right.
until I was like 16, 17. So it is weird when people just are like, they come in and they're sort of talking to you as if you've been in a conversation with them for the last 5 minutes,
Yeah.
and it's like, here's a thought that's in my brain, and they just like throw it at you. And there's
Right.
no, hey, I was watching an episode of the podcast and you had mentioned, it's just like, you should do this out of nowhere. It's like, I don't even know who you are. I've never talked to you before in my entire life.
Yeah. Well, and how much of that is like we're in our own head about how it should be. And it's hard to read tone. I say that to everyone. It is hard to read tone because did they say, hey, how do you breed the snake? Or they say, hey, how do you breed this snake? They're
Yeah. Yeah.
excited, but they don't realize how you're reading it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Where it's
so,
just, hey, tell me
yeah,
now.
exactly. So
Yeah.
there's that. But again, I think as a whole, like if we could just do a better job again, I know they're out there. There are those time wasters, those frustrating people. But as a whole, and again, I'm not perfect myself, but if we could just kind of be a little bit kinder to the potential future generation of the hobby, because if we want to keep doing this, there's only, as our collections keep growing, if nobody else new got into this, we're not going to be able to keep selling each other snakes forever,
Yeah.
especially if these things live a long time. we're going to max out. And so we do need the new business, the new clientele, the new of the hobby.
Yeah. And new friends, I mean,
Well, yeah, for sure. That's definitely the
it's,
bonus of this, but we're at the very least, you want them to be a contributing member of the community. But if you could
yeah.
become friendly, yeah, that's great.
Yeah. I mean, it's honestly just starting this podcast was a, I was shocked at how welcoming a lot of people were, and how kind. And, for me, from where I was coming in, I was like, this is just my sort of selfish way of getting information and talking to people, because everybody does everything so differently.
Yeah.
It's wild how differently everybody even breeds carpet pythons, or what temperatures they keep at, or things like that. And I think in the beginning, I was trying to figure out the way to do it. And then as time went on, it's like, okay, there is no the way to do it. There's numerous ways to do it. And you kind of have to find your own path and your own way. And the best way to do that is through information, being shared, and that's why the podcasts that are out there are so valuable. NPR is so valuable.
Right.
And Trap Talk is so valuable because it's giving out information that I feel like maybe it's the opposite of gatekeeping.
Yeah.
It's opening the gate and saying, hey, we're all welcome here. Let's all figure this out together as a community and grow it so we can all be equally successful.
Yes, definitely. I think your name is very fitting, the expert and the idiot, for when you first started. But now I think everyone who's on your podcast is the idiot relative to all the knowledge you've acquired.
I have become God.
That was your main goal, right? I'm going to get all the information.
I know all.
The all-knowing.
Yeah, I wish. No, I think I think maybe trying to stay an idiot is probably the most beneficial thing.
Green and growing.
Yeah, is just keeping that mentality of like being able to listen to somebody and how they keep, and even just listening to how you cycle your pythons and how you start at when they're less than a year old, like that. That's incredibly interesting to me.
Yeah.
How do you feel about sort of, are there certain animals that you look at them and you see potential and you don't want them to go to a pet keeper, where you see them and you're like, I really want this to go to somebody that's going to breed it?
Sure, I have that mindset, but like it's going to sound like sleazy, but it's like whoever's going to purchase it, right? It's theirs to do with. And this is going to sound really extreme. Like if they chose to eat the snake, that's on them. Like I'm not.
That's messed up.
It's very messed up. But the point is, there's, I'm sure for some people, a God complex in terms of we're breeding these snakes, we're making them, what have you. But what control do we have after we ship it out? I mean, the snake could perish en route shipping.
Yeah.
Like that would be on FedEx or extreme weather or something. Like we don't have as much control as we would like or think we have. And so for me, there's snakes, usually snakes like that. I'm like, maybe this is one I should just keep back and then I'll breed it. Or it's like a holdback. And when someone's like, hey, I'm looking for this really badass snake, I want to pair it to this. Do you have anything that would go with this? And then I magically like, let me just pull this out of my sleeve. But it was always that one that I was like, I was going to hold it back, or, so I guess in that regard, I do that. But if it's up and available, whoever is messaging me, with the exception of having a list and going in that order, it's quite frankly, whoever sends money first. I've had where I've taken a deposit on something or full payment, and somebody else comes across that ad and they message me and they're like, I'll pay more. I see it's pending sale. I'll pay more. And I'm like, I can't do that. Like,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. I'm flattered and I appreciate the offer, but it's not even like an option. I'll let you know if for some reason they change their mind and they can't take it. I've had that happen.
Dude, where do you put your animals up?
So I actually made a morph market a handful of years ago and only last year posted my first ad on morph market. But I'm posting on like Instagram and Facebook, and I'm very grateful that I've created enough of a following that people message me and I sell out based on repeat and referral business.
Wow.
I know a lot of people were like, "Oh, he's just wholesaling everything." That was one of the things that was said about me when I went dark. Like, no, I just was breeding a little bit less, and I am fortunate that usually if I post one snake on Facebook or Instagram and say this is available, I get 6 messages, and I usually sell 4 to 6 animals in that timeline of
Whoa.
one post.
Damn, dude.
And I also ask questions because someone may see your ad for your jungle, and I've had people who ask like, "Do you have breadlie? Do you have IJs? Do you have other things?" But I've now learned, when you're trying to sell snakes without having to make ads, if they inquire, I'll say, "Do you by chance have any interest in?" And I put a list of things that I have available.
Hmm.
And it's been, some people will call it an upsell. It's crazy how many people have reached out to me for one snake and I've shipped them 6 because I had what they were looking for.
Wow. Yeah, that is crazy. So now, with that being said, are you going to start steering more towards morph market and listing on there? Or are you just going to keep it where you're like, hey, I have this snake, and then do it that way?
I think I'm missing if I sold one snake a year on Morph Market, if I didn't post on Morph Market, I'd be missing the boat. And so I
Hmm.
believe I could sell more snakes on Morph Market than one a year. So yes, my intention is to post more on Morph Market. Um, and I think just use all the platforms to the best of my ability. I'm not on OfferUp and Craigslist. I'm not going like that because I feel like that's a different buyer.
It is. Yeah, for sure.
um, but yeah, I definitely plan on posting more on Morph Market, um,
Right
and
on.
using that tool.
Yeah. All right. Well, I kind of want to change gears and get into those dirty wild caught animals. And
Cool.
well, how do you? So, I didn't intend any negative connotation earlier regarding wild caught animals, but I feel like there is sort of negativity that surrounds. Oh, it came from the wild, and it's got parasites and all that. So when you're getting those animals in, how do you
Mhm.
ensure that they don't have parasites? And, because I've heard both schools of thought. I've heard that some people are like, yeah, I get them in, I get them heat, I get them humidity, I get them clean water to drink, and I feed them. And that's my focus. And then I've heard other people say you hit them with the flagell or the dewormers and all that from the get go. You deworm them, and and you just hit them with this barrage of stuff. What direction do you take with that?
So it depends. So everything that I'm getting imported in my mind, I do call dirty and disgusting. So it's funny. um, and I view it as a plague. Now, I've had stuff that has come in with ticks, and that's my line. Like I could do fleas on dogs and cats. I could do snake mites on snakes, but ticks give me the heebie-jeebies. And
Mm,
so the couple times that I've had to remove ticks from snakes, that one's not fun. I'm wearing gloves and I am like squirming, and I feel everything crawling under my skin. Ticks is like my threshold. Um,
wow.
but I will say external parasites are the better of the parasites. Um, I'm fortunate that I have a friend who is a legit vet that I've known while he was going to school to be a vet, long before he was a vet. And so now it's bring him fecals and he prescribes me with the meds and get them cleaned up, even though I will always have this like you're a dirty import.
Yeah.
And it's just, if I view it that way, it helps me keep things clean and no cross contamination. I'm so much to the point where my captive bred and born stuff, if it's on one side of the room, with the exception of like breeding and moving a male to a female cage or tub, like it stays there.
Mm,
It's not going to the other side of the room, period, bar none. I just have this mindset that if it's in this rack or this cage unit, it stays here, because if this one is sick and I move it, I'm just going to be moving everything around. So I don't
mm,
know that everyone does that or does it with that thought process versus they just set up a cage and a rack and it just stays there because that's just where it lives. But I have that mindset. I'm not moving things around. And that's with things that are CBB, which I'm still running quarantine on. I always talk about that. Doesn't matter if it's your close friend. I've gotten stuff from Nick. And while I believe his stuff is clean, I'm still going to go run it through quarantine. Why? Because what if, and this is anyone, not just Nick, Todd at the time too, you name it, the day they send you your snake, a week later they find something in their collection, but now it's been
mhm,
exposed to your collection. Um, and so for the imports, yeah, I'm running fecals, getting the meds that I need. I'm still viewing them as dirty. And then, I have customers who want to buy it and they want to run the fecals. They want to go through it. I have people who want to do it for the aspect of they're like in vet school, they're a vet tech. They want that experience of knowing that they cleaned up their own reptile,
mhm,
and the learning aspect. And I have people who um, I would interpret as they don't know that I'm doing it or doing it to their standard, which is acceptable, understandable. And so they will message me, hey, I'm looking for this, but like when you get it, ship it to me that same day. I don't care if it drinks
mm.
water or eats for you. I don't want it in your collection. I just want it straight, like fresh off the boat
Wow.
or airplane.
So with animals that you're keeping, do you run the fecal first, and then if there is an issue, you treat for it, or so you just don't treat if it's a brand new animal and they just have a long quarantine?
I used to do the shotgun treatment with my first ever import. That one I actually kept that in my brother's room. Like I didn't bring it into my place. Like I was just that like, and he didn't have reptiles. But I was like, this is an import. Like this is so bad. But we also have to be logical on like what's going to jump per se. Like think of the external parasite. How do you pass mites between snakes in reality? And to this day, I still do use Frontline. We can talk about that, but I'm using that for external parasites. Every new snake I get, captive bred and born or import, I'm hitting them with Frontline. They get set up, and then I give them water the next day, and then I'm hoping to get a fecal before ever offering them a meal and run the test in that regard. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult. They come in with an empty stomach. They don't want to eat for you. And so then we have to get creative um, and get food into them to try and get that fecal.
Okay, so talk to me about Frontline. Is that the what is that? Fipronil? Is that
Yep.
fipronil or
Fipronil
okay, so that's the
is the active
spray.
ingredient. Hmm. Yeah,
Okay,
I
and
should clarify, not the oil drops, the spray, which has since like been discontinued in America, and you have to jump through a bunch of hoops to get it present day, but it's still out there if you shop hard enough. Um, I've gotten it from other countries, literally in
okay.
other languages.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Um Now I've heard that that can be deleterious to the health of the animal. Is there a way that you dose it or apply
Nope.
it to the animal to for safety?
Yes. So I will say, like anything, there was many years ago, I think it was 2006, 2007, when Nintendo Wii was new and big, and this radio station did hold your Wii for a Wii, right? Whoever held their pee the longest would win the Nintendo Wii. And
That's so dumb.
doctors and nurses were calling in, and I think it was a lady who died
Jesus
from
Christ.
like water poisoning or something, too much
Jesus
water
Christ.
in a short period of time. And she died, and everyone on the radio station got fired. Like, it was a big thing. And so that's water, and we all need water to live, right?
Yeah.
So with that said, too much of anything can kill you.
Okay.
So for frontline, the spray, what I do is I put on a pair of gloves, I spray my hands, and I lather them together. And I've made a YouTube video about this. And then I treat the snake from head to tail. I'm not over here by the vents. I'm not, smothering it and holding it. I'm doing a quick wipe down on the head, everything around, and then from the neck right behind the head, it's lathered down to the tail. And sometimes, depending on the snake, you get about halfway and you can feel the gloves have dried up. So you just spray a little bit more, lather together, and then start from about there and continue down. You could tell the snake is wet. I hold it, I'm holding the snake out and about. And this one's really interesting with imports because they're not always friendly. I've done this quite a bit. It's fun. It's like playing roulette. And I put them to my nose. I put the snake body to my nose. And I want to make sure that the scent of alcohol is gone. So that way I know that the snake is dried off. And try not to get bit in the face, specifically when you're doing imports, because it happens. Fortunately, it's not like a bite and a latch. It's usually like a quick kiss, and you're like, fuck.
Yeah.
Excuse my language. So I do that, and then I make sure the snake is dry. I make sure I can't smell it anymore, and then I set them up in their tub or cage or what have you. And again, that doesn't matter if it's CBB or import. And when I say cage or tub, it's still in a quarantine room area, things of that nature. And I'm setting them up on paper towels when I first get them. No water bowl for the first day, and then give them a water bowl the second day.
Wow. And you haven't had any adverse effects with that?
I have never, but the person who taught me about frontline, they had learned, and they got that actually from a full-blown DVM. A vet told them to do this. So,
Okay.
I know there's people out there who are like, well, why do you do it that way? How do you do it? Sure. The person who told me about it wasn't a vet, but who they learned it from was a vet. Anyways, they did kill some younger colubrids, the way they were keeping them and just trying to do a whole bunch at once. And then after that, never had an issue again, just doing the method of, and I've helped them 15, 20 years ago with their snake collection in terms of treating itty bitty corn snakes. Because they're buying and selling, in part. So they're getting a bunch of animals at once. And so same thing, we had a mindset of like do somewhere between 20 and 30 snakes and then do a glove change. So that way it's not all concentrated and, by snake 100, that's just super concentrated and screwing up the ratio. No scientist, but you could have a little bit of thought process when you do things.
Yeah, sure.
And I don't mean for that to sound like a dig. It's just kind of like go out of your way to try and do things carefully. People talk about doing nicks, and they've killed snakes doing nicks. No pest strips. People have killed snakes doing no pest strips, which isn't even good for you to be in the same room with. And then the other one being PAM from Prevenamite from Pro Products, which I used to like. That was my thing. I used to use Prevenamite. But then you had to do a whole bunch of treatments and same thing, you could still gas out an animal. And if you ask me, you're more likely to gas out an animal doing Prevenamite than you are on frontline. And again, I've talked to people. I won't share because I haven't paid attention if they've put it out there that they've had bad experiences publicly. So I
Mhm.
do know of a few people who have had bad experiences with frontline. And so
Allegedly.
uh, no, trusted, and I know they killed off some of their collection, so it's not a dig at them, and it's not my business. It's not my business to share. But I personally have not had an issue with Frontline. But I also
What do you think about the Next Guard? Because have you heard about anybody using Next Guard? I know Dan Maleri is going to be, or I think he's already using Next Guard. And I think Metazotics is going to be using Next Guard. And personally, I think I know 4 people now that have used NextGuard for active mite uh, issues, infestations, I guess you could say. And it's like, bam, issue gone, 0 side effects. I haven't heard of anybody with any side effects. I'm not a veterinarian, and clearly I'm not advising anybody does this. But to me, it seems like the future of treating mites. Have you heard anything about that, or have you
I don't
tried
know
it
that
yet?
I'm even familiar with it. Is it a spray?
No, it's an edible chew for dogs.
Okay.
And so people are buying, first there's a couple different ways you can do it. There's actually, I think, veterinary medicine compounding pharmacies that can make it for extremely small animals, as small as neonates, which Paul Duran did for his baby scrub pythons that all had mites. And then, but I think the majority of people are just getting like the teacup Yorkie size one, and they're ratioing it out for the size of their animal. It's like for a 15-pound dog. So then you just weigh it out in grams and you cut it up, stuff it inside of a feeder, give it to the animal, and boom, ticks, mites, everything gone, eviscerated. If you're keeping in a bioactive enclosure, it doesn't affect them. But to anything that requires a blood meal, they get on the host, they get their first meal, boom, they're dead, they're gone forever. So it seems like it seems like there's a lot of people that have been using this and they've been very successful with it.
So they're chopping up a pill and then adding
A
water
chew,
to it, or how are they getting it into the rodent?
you just open its mouth and stuff that sucker in there.
But not in pill form, like it's powderized at that point, right? Or
It's a
no,
chew. They're
it is a chew.
chewable. Yeah, so like to make it edible,
Like a
not
gummy?
edible,
Like
not
that
like
kind
a
of chewable, or like
no, you're not dosing your snakes.
no. I'm not saying I'm I'm saying like a gummy bear. Like chewy
No,
like
it's
that?
like picture
Like
do you
gelatin.
have a like for a dog,
Okay.
like imagine like a little dog treat. You know how they're usually like meaty bite,
Oh, okay.
little
Yeah.
meaty morsel kind of bullshits,
Yeah.
like it's that kind of thing. My dog is on it, is on NextGuard, but he's on the heartworm version too,
Yeah.
which I think has ivermectin in it. Uh, but so, and I'm not advising anybody do this
Right.
at all, but apparently, so this stuff is prescription only in the States, but you can order it from Australia and I believe Canada, and they'll ship it here. And usually you don't get caught. And I think even if you do get caught, like you don't get in trouble. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't advise anybody do this. I can't say that enough. Disclaimer. Yes, that full, nobody do this. Talk to your vet. But Dan Maleri, I think, gets all his from Australia.
So Dan, I've been to Dan's place many times. I've seen inside, the room and all that. And
Overseas or here?
here, I haven't been
Okay.
to his overseas place yet. And so with that said, like, yeah, Dan's a smart cookie.
Yeah.
In fact, I met him at his work back when he was working. Like, me and Dan, yeah, we got some history. He would do things right. And so I say that in that context because I don't think it's realistic for most people. It's got just to get it, you either need a prescription or you need to find that source that'll send it to you. And then you have to do your calculations.
Mhm.
And you have to make sure that the person doing it, again, not a dig, just that they're a smart enough cookie to make sure they do the conversion properly and measurements, and that they have the tools and ability. And so do I think is that the future? No. Now, if they made something specifically for snakes,
They already
like,
are.
so then that might be, because then it would be, again, marketed for snakes, and then you could do what I envision. I don't know that they're doing it this way, but like an eyedropper that you're just
Mhm.
opening the snake's mouth and you're dropping it in.
Mhm.
That would, in my opinion, be more of the future. But for me personally, for external parasites, I'm doing frontline. That's like my go-to. It's so easy. Again, just spray your gloves, lather your hands together, wipe down animal, and you're done.
Yeah.
Versus if to treat the same parasites, again, we're talking same parasites, internal parasites different, and internal bacteria, all that stuff different. But why would I want to do a product that's going to treat the external parasites, but now I have to pry the snake's mouth open or do an injection, in the muscle,
Yeah.
versus if I'm looking to take out internal parasites and that's what I have to do, that's what I am doing.
Yeah. Yeah. So the active ingredient is a foxolaner, I think that's how it's pronounced. And if I'm not mistaken, somebody sent me a link. They are making it for snakes now,
Okay.
but I think it's only available in the UK.
They
And
get everything,
yeah, they're on the
including the new
cutting edge.
carpet python morphs first.
Yeah. Yeah. There's people in my Patreon that are getting diamond pythons from the UK, and they're really well priced.
Really?
Yeah, they're like 1,500 shipped. And I'm like, damn, that's
Huh?
pretty damn good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's interesting to me. I mean, if I ever have a run in with mites, which I really don't plan on ever having a run in with mites, I have a pretty strict quarantine, and I keep everything separate. But I would probably try that out. I mean, I recently just had somebody that is in my Patreon have mites show up, and I think it lasts 2 months or a month or something.
Okay.
So it covers that
Yeah.
full
Cycle
life
of
cycle.
mite. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you just, and like I said, I think they're beef flavored, and you're just opening the mouth of your feeder, and you pack it in there, feed that to the snake, and that's all she wrote.
That's funny.
Yeah.
When you said beef flavored, I just envisioned a snake eating a cow, or like having a taste of a cow, like in the context of a hamburger. It's just kind of funny when you think of it like that.
It's a mouse burger.
Yeah,
With,
burger.
with the mite treatment. So let's see. All right. So you do frontline. We covered that. So internally, if you have a fecal done and something comes up, what are you using to treat that?
So I wish I did know. My pronunciation of big words is terrible. It's funny when you were saying what the active ingredient is of that one. I was going to say, can you use it in a sentence? So I get the drugs and I just use them. He tells me what the dosage is. He prints it on the label. Like, again, it's a legit vet.
Yeah.
But that's aspect of things, because I'm not going to source it anywhere else. Like, I guess I haven't really tried, but I also have a vet who, if he knows I got in 10 snakes and one is this, he's giving me extra and then doing, the fecals, but he's charging me for one dosage, if that makes sense. And now I'm able to run it, but he's doing multiple fecals versus a little bit for everything. But anyways, whatever he's prescribing, because I do like to run the fecals on everything. So that way you could get everything taken care of, versus a shotgun treatment doesn't necessarily get everything if you're not doing the right dosage, because you don't know what you're trying to take out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just go off of whatever that label is. I could look because I have stuff right now for the meds that I could look at the bottle. I'll send you a picture or what it is if you want to put it in later.
It's no big deal. I'm sure that, whatever it is, no matter what, if anybody is ever treating for internal or external parasites, you should be doing it with the guidance of a veterinarian.
Right.
I can't
And
overstate that.
there's only like a handful of drugs anyways that they're using. And there's
Yeah.
something about like, again, here I go, I guess it's kind of my lane because I do imports, but like, I think they say like A granulum or something, there's like different types of meds depending on what you're going to do.
Okay.
And that's a matter of like what you're looking to treat: bacteria, virus, parasite. But again, I always joke that's above my pay grade. I'm just following and getting them clean and going from there.
Yeah. Now, have you ever had any like novel serpentovirus come into your collection from wild caught animals?
No, but I know that they've talked about it. One of my importers was saying that some wild caught stuff came in with it, and so it was still at the farm. And I guess it was kind of interesting because I'm like, it's at the farm and they're testing at the farm. Like it didn't make sense, but he said, yeah, they had tested. And so fortunately I didn't get anything from there. But I would assume that, yeah, it could still come in with some of these viruses like that.
Yeah, that would be kind of scary. But
Yeah.
I'm assuming, so now do you just, if you were to ever get like an RI or something like that come up, do you then test them for Serpento, for Nido?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. It's just, I mean, I know there's people out there who are like, well, everyone has Nido and this, that, the other. But it's like the goal is to try and treat. Just like when we as humans get sick, sometimes there isn't anything they could prescribe us to eliminate it, but they could prescribe us things to for the why am I
Symptoms.
blanking? Thank you for the
Yeah.
symptoms. And so I'm always trying to do the best I can for them, but that is also selfish motive because I do have this big fear of like getting something and it just wiping out my collection.
Sure.
Like I live with that mindset. Like if you saw sometimes when I'm going through my room and cleaning, like um I don't know if I could say his name, but a breeder friend of mine, he has this mindset like if you sniffled once, you are sick forever in my mind. And I will
Yeah.
always like you got the dark cloud. So I will pay attention to what females I pair it to, like this,
Sure.
that, the other. Like I'm still going to keep it sure by all accounts you're fine now and you're healthy now, whether he treated with meds or treated with raising the temperature, right? It doesn't matter. And it's funny because I have that similar mindset. Like if you're sick, like you always got that little note on you. I always
Mhm.
remember like you were sick, you did something. Like same with a gurge. If I have a snake gurge, in my opinion, it's not a normal thing. Like
Mhm.
if I fed too big, is that a possible reason for a gurge? Yes. But what's more likely, in my opinion, for a gurge is going to be it's either sick or the heat went out on that rack or that cage.
Mhm.
And so it's just this little note that I make and I keep in mind. I will treat those animals last when I'm cleaning. Wear gloves. I take off the gloves and I'm walking around kind of like a surgeon in the hospital room because I don't touch anything. I got to wash up. I got to disinfect. You
Yeah.
know, I do have that mindset.
Yeah, I think that's probably a healthy mindset to have. I mean, I've had a lot of, I think I've spent like probably $1,000 on serpentovirus testing just on my collection.
Mhm.
And, it's like, okay, this thing seems a little mucusy. It seems a little like, what's going on here? And then, okay, anything that was in the rack with it or near it, like I'm going to test and go through that, and, thankfully I've had all negatives. But, and Nido is one of those weird things where you could have it living in one animal and it won't cause any harm, but you pair it to another one and it could kill it,
Yep.
and so, yeah, I mean, so when you pair your snakes,
Mhm.
is water, do they have water available? Or
Yes,
are they, okay, so they're drinking from the same water bowl?
potentially. And
Yeah.
I'm going to say I believe they are. But
Yeah.
do I see them quite literally drinking from the same water bowl? No. But they have access to it. I know there's some people who remove water. They only pair. I have done the remove water thing, but I do leave it. Um, and I'm also, it's funny because um, I could afford to remove the water because I usually pair for one night and one night only.
Really?
Mhm.
Damn. That boy better make it count.
So, this stems from this is actually what I call the Todd Dyer method.
Okay.
Not to say that others don't do it or before his time have done it. Um, I'm watching the females, and this we he and I had very many lengthy conversations about breeding snakes. I was over his place many times and helping him clean the warehouse, and we're having conversation. And the amount of times that, hey, I'm just going to pick up a snake real quick at 8 p.m. or drop something off or just swing by in the area. And I'm walking out of the shop at 2 a.m.
Mm,
It
yeah.
was more often than not. But what he does is you just watch your animals, whether you food cycle them, temperature cycle them, you watch your animals, and you could see when a female is full of follicles. And then you go as far as some people could do it with their bare hand. Some people use a paper towel. He actually gifted me like a composer glove, just a cloth cotton glove that you put on and then
Oh,
palpate
wow.
the female. And so if you're paying attention to your female and you're dialed in, and I know people have different size collections, but I got quite a lot of females and I'm watching them and you could see them. It's always harder if you acquire an animal as an adult until you have her for a few seasons. But stuff I've grown up, I know what they look like. I'm watching, see them swell, palpate, confirm there's follicles, throw the mail in. He locks up with her usually within 2 hours.
Mm,
And then the next morning, he's usually done, but it depends. And then I'm pulling him out and I'm done. That's my breeding season.
wow.
And I've had great success with that. I've had not only 100% breeding ratio of males getting the job done, locking up with females in that timeline, but then turning into actual clutches with 100% fertility rate. And
Holy
then
shit.
100% hatch rate. Yeah, it's a wicked method because it's like you have to be dialed into your collection. There's no getting lucky with it. I mean, if you're not paying attention, the likelihood, unless you're palpating every day, like you're not
Yeah.
looking, you're just manually palpating, that would be one way that you would be able to do it because you would fill her full of follicles and then you could throw the male in. But so often he used to say, like, his thing would, how many people are pairing a male with a female and she's not ready and receptive. So she's not doing what she needs to do, releasing pheromones, what have you. And so he's also then not responding because it's the wrong time. Just like
Mm,
humans, there's only a couple days out of the month a woman could actually get pregnant.
mm,
All the other days, nothing's going to happen despite you doing the deed. And
yeah.
so you got males that'll breed a piece of rope. And so it doesn't matter when you throw him in with the female. Shit, you could throw him in with another male and he's going to breed them if they don't combat. That's common with ball pythons. I do know that. Um, but ignoring that aspect, how many times has someone paired two snakes? The male doesn't instantly lock like the book says it will. And so then you're like, oh, I've done something wrong or he's not ready. And then you leave them together for a month. They never lock up.
Mm,
The month was going to pass whether he was in there or not, the 1 month time. You remove him, you put in another male, and then he locks up with her because guess what? She cycled.
mm,
Now, with that said, there is argument that shows a male could stimulate a female, right? He could spur her out. That could trigger her to then cycle because she's like, okay, I have a male that's ready to do the deed. Let me do my part. But on the flip side, he could also potentially stress her out and just make things that much more difficult. Stress is never, as a percentage, most stress isn't good for humans or for snakes. And we often stress when we pair snakes together and don't see what we want to see. So
Yeah.
I made a YouTube video about that. Don't stress, blah, blah, blah. And it's true. It's become fun. It's become a game because I know a lot of people still throw snakes together and leave them together for many moons. Whereas I get to palpate, see that she's ready, throw male in. He does the deed in a very short period of time, snag my pictures, and majority of the time by the next morning, they're done and unlocked. But there's been times where I've paired them and they're locked up for no joke, 36 hours.
Wow.
Mind you, I didn't watch them for all 36. So is there a chance that they detached for 2 to 4 hours and then he got right back to it? Sure, there's a chance, but I've done stuff where in a 36-hour window, the only time every time I looked at them, they were locked up. And so then I remove after they're no longer locked with great success.
Wow. So that is really interesting. So a lot of people pair towards the beginning, right? And just to get them together and try to stimulate follicular development from the female. Now you're just leaving them. You're not doing that. You're skipping that step and you're food cycling, your temperature cycling. That's how you're trying to develop follicles. And then you've got your composer gloves, which is like a hack secret right there. You palpate, okay, she's developing, pick your male that you choose to pair her with, throw him in. And as long as she's in that stage and you've done your part, now he can do his part.
Yep.
Wow.
And mind you, you could feel, for most people, they could probably feel, once they know how to do it, right? If you show someone and guide them properly, most people could feel the follicles at the different stages. But we're talking when they're plump, prime, and ready, like the size of a big enlarged grape. And that's when she's primed and ready to go. And then again, you just throw that male in and it works. And
now in your experience, what is the female, aside from developing follicles and actually being able to feel them, what else is she doing? Is she avoiding heat? Is she going towards heat? Is she laying weird? Is she up high? Is she down low? Is there any observations that you can see? Or is it strictly that physical, that touch?
For me, it's mainly the touch. But I would, if I had to use anything in terms of a label, I would probably say leans more towards restless. Like she's moving a little bit more and I don't mean cruising like a male looking for a female. I mean, she'll go from heat to cool. Like she's moving in that sense. And for me, it's just my observation. It seems like a little bit more than normal.
Okay.
But again, she's not truly restless like a male would be when he's looking for a female. And it could be completely unrelated. Maybe it's something that I think I look a little closer during that time of year, and I think I pay attention more. And so maybe that's it. But for me, it really is just kind of looking at the female visually, knowing what time of year I'm in, and palpating manually.
And what about?
I'd say that a lot of people do get tripped out from follicle development, and they think that's ovulation. And it's, again, they swell. It's like a human woman. We've probably all heard a woman say, "I feel bloated right now" when she's in her cycle. Okay. Well, what's happening then? Literally, there's real things happening inside on why she feels bloated, and it's part of the cycle and process. it's not just she ate the wrong thing. There's science to this above my pay grade. And it's the same with the snakes. They look bloated because things are happening. Those follicles are swelling. They're prime. They're ready to go. Well, I mean, I say prime and ready to go, but she will be receptive of a male at that time.
Mm. And what about the weather? Are you waiting then? Like when you feel the follicles, or you're like, all right, I'm going to wait for barometric pressure to, change and wait for a storm to come through or something, or are you just throwing them together?
If I waited for the storm in Southern California,
That's
I'd never
true.
breed carpet pythons.
Yeah.
or maybe anything else. Like, again, carpets are what I
You
eat.
spoiled son of a bitch.
It doesn't rain here enough. So when it rains, everybody, usually if we got rain here, the eastern United States is getting rain too, because it always rains over there. At least that's what I believe.
Yeah.
And so when, Tony, Brandon, a few other friends will post like, look at the rain and my snakes are locked up. So occasionally I'll do it just for the rain and stuff. But is there a connection? I think the science leads to, the pressure change leads to them cycling. At least I haven't read up enough on what the real connection is. Is it just a temperature change which triggers something and they know? But yes, there is what I'd say proven science to that. Yeah, with the rainstorm, they usually lock up. So occasionally I'll do it for fun, but I don't expect anything out of it. Keep in mind, this is with the knowledge that I know a female can retain sperm. So you could argue that he could lock up with her when she wasn't ready. Mm-hmm. She's retaining the sperm. You cycle her properly, never introduce the male again, and she still give you a healthy clutch.
Mm.
I've also done a split clutch. So I paired, it was with a jungle female, and I paired a super zebra male to her that was small, along with a normal jungle male. Mm-hmm. And I got half zebras, half normals. Now,
so both males sired that clutch?
Yes.
Wow.
Because the science of genetics, and again, we could go off on a tangent and say, well, if he was a chimera or something like that, chimera, that maybe one testicle was normal in him, or zebra, and you can't see it because, right, not all of these visually represent. Does that make sense? And so you could argue
so he can have a zebra testicle and a normal testicle.
Exactly. Like if you're going down to it, right? Versus most people say paradox or chimera, you visually see it, right? A normal and albino, and it's a blotchy, patchy snake. But what happens when that same process takes place, but within, on like an organ, right? The siblings still fuse together, but you don't see it visually represented. That's what I was looking for. Visually represented on the outside. So someone could argue that extreme case. I had a visually appearing super zebra male, but one of his testicles was chimera. And so it was really actually a normal testicle or a zebra. And so that would skew what my babies are. But ignoring that extreme variable / curveball that someone's going to throw in there, I paired a super zebra to a normal female. So any zebra baby came from the super zebra. That's how genetics work. Wow. Whereas any normal baby came from the normal male.
That's crazy.
But it was one that I had been wanting to do for a while, because you hear about people getting split clutches and other things. I don't know how many people have done a split clutch in carpet pythons.
Did you tell Nick about this?
Yeah, Nick and I, in fact, I'm pretty sure he and I, most of that information that I just regurgitated came from him. The argument of someone saying that all the way down to the testicle, even though it doesn't look like it.
Yeah. Man, that's crazy.
Yeah, we talked about that because the other one that I could have done over time was like a stripe by stripe bredli, or throwing in the hypo male.
Mm.
Any baby that hatches stripe would be from the striped male, right? Genetic stripe. Any baby that hatched normal would be sired by the hypo and 100% het genetic stripe.
Wow.
But I didn't do that one. And there's only so many of these genes you could do because a lot are recessive. And I'm not going to breed like a zebra to a granite and then do, like an axanthic male. So where if the babies were normal or half were zebra. So there's only so many ways that you could do this and know who the dad is, right? Because if
Yeah.
you just throw two similar looking jungles in with a female jungle, you don't know who the dad is. Do you have a split clutch? And if so, is it the first 5 babies to hatch that are that male? Like, you can't tell. Or did one male do the job and the other one didn't, despite seeing both being locked with the female? And if so, which sperm did she use?
Mm.
We don't know. But when you're talking genetic mutations, there's a few times you could tell. And I would argue the super zebra and the normal was one of those times I was able to tell who your daddy was.
Yeah, that's wild. And you hear about a lot of people having like partho clutches and things like that. And then
Yep.
it makes you wonder, like, is it truly partho? And I guess that can be determined by if they're like booked up and if they're clones. But
Or virgin female.
yeah, exactly. Right. Like then it's proven, right? But if the female is bred before, then you sit there and you're like, was that sperm like retained from a previous breeding? I mean, rattlesnakes can retain sperm for like 6 or 7 years, I think, which is bananas, dude. That's crazy.
Yep. It makes you wonder and scratch your head. Because then same thing, like if they're retaining some of that sperm, then are you getting a split clutch without even knowing it when you use a different male the next season?
Yeah. Old sperm and new sperm mixed together.
Right. And then you could really go into it and say, did you not get a split clutch at all? But male A from 2025 breeding is a sire of the 2026 breeding that you did with male B.
Oh man. Yeah, then what are we doing here, Steven?
Which is why some of my snakes, they only have one breeder male. Like that's all they're ever going to see.
Mm.
And when I say that's why, it's more so because of a desired look or something like in my own head. Because
Sure.
otherwise I'll lose sleep and go crazy if I just thought about that for every single thing.
Yeah.
Because it is a possibility.
That is crazy, man.
See, now you're thinking about it like, fuck.
Well, no, I mean, I've thought about these things before because I've heard that it happens with short tail pythons that they retain sperm. And, so you hear about these things and then it makes you wonder about the variability of clutches where people get a clutch and they're like, I never expected to see X, Y, and Z. And, there's no rhyme or reason to it. And it's like, what if it's just total chaos and we just don't even realize how chaotic it really is?
Yeah. She's in college now, but it's the high school baby daddy.
Yeah. Well, and like, I mean, the only way to truly rule that out would be to do genomic testing of the fathers, right? To like test all the neonates and then test the DNA of like essentially do a paternity test, right?
Which are those available now in the reptile community or not yet? I know
I
the
have no
mutation
idea.
winners.
I'm just saying stuff.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
I don't think so yet. And yet being, relative, is it will it be available in the next 10 years or next 100 years?
Yeah. I mean, I guess we could just get him on Maury if he was still alive, and determine the father that way.
Well, instead of Warren Booth, we'll get him on Worry.
Yeah. Yeah. Boy, I need to get Dr. Booth back on to ask him some of these questions.
Yeah. Because those, I feel like those are also the fun ones, right? Because in some aspect, there's a hypothetical to it, but there's also like, it's not likely, but is it possible? Yes. And here's the science behind it.
Mm.
Um, which makes it fun. But yeah, it's pretty neat to see, you know, siblings, and I have the tubs labeled, and it's the same female, but different dad and same year and birthday.
Mm.
It's a way that you could, again, when you're doing genetics, and let's say you're dealing with new morphs, because I have um, I have friends who keep other things, colubrids specifically, and they're doing the morph game with their colubrids, and we're talking groundbreaking import animals that look like a certain morph, and they're doing the legwork to prove out whether it is a morph or not.
Mm.
Excuse me. And I'm telling them, like, well, if you got this style look, with the exception of it being a recessive morph where everything will hatch out looking normal, once you prove the mode of inheritance, you could use two different uh, males and potentially do the split clutch thing.
Wow.
Because I'd imagine, again, this is just guessing, I'd imagine you should be able to do it with like all the snakes,
Mm-hmm.
with how their breeding cycle looks. Um, it might be a little tougher with the short window of a colubrid being like, everything's much shorter and faster with them. I think their post ovulation shed, they're laying eggs within 7 to 10 days of that, versus a python's like 30 days. And then you go to boas and live birth, and that's north of 100 days.
Yeah. Damn, man. There's a lot to think about there.
Yeah. It definitely
One of
makes it
these
more
snakes.
fun too when you start doing the math behind it,
Yeah.
like the mapping things out. Because again, it's like part of this. It's still a hobby. I think the little kid in all of us, we still get joy, and yeah, you're like, oh, that could be neat. Oh, that could be fun. Oh, this could speed up a project, because instead of breeding male 1 to her in 2025 and male 2, and the babies being a whole year apart, I could raise half sibling babies with the same mom, but different genetics, and their siblings from the same clutch.
Mm. Going back to building follicles, when are you seeing this happen generally? Like when are you doing that
Like,
one pairing?
like
One night?
what month, or like
Yeah.
how long after cooling?
Yeah, like how long after cooling have you fed them? Like what like is putting the female back on food stimulating that follicular development as well?
Mm, I would say maybe with the breadlie it is, in terms of like my spring breeders. Um,
When
but
people
otherwise,
say spring breeder, is that why? Like because they don't breed until they get their food and it's like, oh, okay, everything's good to go. Like the animals are abundant again. I'm back on food. The temperatures are coming up. It's time to get it on.
I assume so. Versus
Okay.
like stuff that like IJs are going to be my winter breeders, what I'd
Okay.
call winter breeders, because they're going to breed for me in the winter. Versus my breadlie, I'm going to cool in the winter and not even think about pairing until things start to warm up. Like I'm
Okay.
barely going to start considering pairing my breadlie now. And it doesn't mean that I would pair them necessarily this month in March, but I'm going to start looking closer to it.
What kind of breadlie do you have?
Um, I have hypos. I don't have any genetic stripe right now. I've kept them in the past. That was actually one of the females that slugged out that I was never able to successfully breed. Um, but I have hypo stonewash, normals.
What the hell is the difference between hypo and stonewashed?
Hypo is hypomelanistic, so it just makes them lighter, reduces the uh, black pigment. But
Uh-huh.
stonewash, and that's a polygenic trait, whereas stonewash is recessive, and by the neck area, it makes it look kind of faded and the pattern's a little bit different.
Okay.
But in the same token, it's by definition a pied gene, because when you look at the belly, it looks like pied stuff.
Interesting.
But I don't think anybody has successfully made like what we would call like a pied ball python on the backside of a breadline.
Can I have a really offensive hot take real quick?
Yeah.
I think that striped breadlies ruin the awesome look of breadlies.
No, I agree. And their color isn't that impressive. Striped breadlies are dark.
I think banding is really cool.
Yeah.
So like a hypo breadlie to me is tops.
Mm-hmm.
Like that because you get the light. They look really pretty, like they look in nature. Like when you see people herp up breadlie and they look really light and pretty, and you're like, that looks like a hypo, right?
Yeah.
Like to me, a plain hypo breadlie is the most beautiful version of a breadlie. I think if I were to ever get them, which I want to, because I could keep them outside, which would be really neat. I think that's the direction I would want to go. I'd want the banding. I'd want full pattern, but I'd want them to be a little lighter than, although I do like the Afors as well. I think the Afors are really pretty.
They are. I feel like you might appreciate slightly a hypo stripe breadline. But
dog, I just said I don't like stripes.
I know, but you said you like that hypo color. Because if you ask me, like, I'm on the same page, but I lean more so towards I don't like a striped breadline because as a whole they look darker. Like they don't look like traditional breadline colors unless you start to add hypo. Did someone do an Afers stripe?
I don't know, but I feel like people need to stop outcrossing the Afors. I think they need to keep them pure because there's not enough of them out there. You know? That's my personal opinion.
No, I agree. Keep certain lines a certain line. Well, it's like what is that? Why am I blanking?
Real quick, let me correct myself. If you have an Afors male and it's not doing anything that season, like then I'm like, yeah, go ahead, throw that male with something. You know what I'm saying? But like if you have an Afors female and you're pairing it up with some other male and you have the ability to have a pure Afors pair going, like that's where you lose me.
Okay.
Sorry. I have a lot of hot takes for not even having these snakes, but I'm entitled to my opinions.
Yeah, of course. It's like if you got like a zebra male, then you could throw with your Afers female because you didn't have an Afers male.
Exactly. What the hell are we talking about? Oh yeah, when are you pairing them for their one night of bliss?
So I just kind of evaluating because they're not all going at the same time, all my females, which is funny because I'm doing the same food cycles and the same temperature cycles, stuff in the same rack or same cage units, stacked cages on the same thermostat. They're not all going at the same time. So it's interesting. Have I had females that are cycling at the exact same time? Yes, but that I would say that's more so of a product of having a larger collection versus that they're in sync or something. In terms of when, other than literally making notes, I couldn't tell you when, if that makes sense. There's not like a set timeline where I'm like, this female should. Now, by year 2 or 3, I could look back at notes and I'm like, dang, within one day, she cycled the same time last year. She's on her own same schedule. So she ovulated same day 1 year later or within a day. I've seen that. But it isn't like I couldn't say IJs are going to start producing follicles the 3rd week of November or something of that nature, if that makes sense.
Interesting. Okay.
Which real quick, something that came to my mind is with my wild, dirty IJs, just to get people kind of thinking. is what is the difference now? Let's say you decided you wanted to sell your diamond pythons. They're out exposed to the elements of ticks and fleas.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. They're
And then,
disgusting.
right? And then what's like an internal parasite look like? And then this is going to sound kind of bad, but I mean, is it possible that a fence lizard gets in and your diamond python eats it and it's full of parasites? Or a little rat or a mouse at night?
Sure.
Like I've seen your setup and it looks great, but the possibility is
It's there. Yeah.
And again, it's not to throw shade. Like there's a few people doing it, but it's just, I think especially once you get eggs and now you're hatching babies in captivity, like what does it matter if the parents are filthy, ridden, full of parasites, which if they were, they're probably not going to survive breeding season.
Yeah. No, I wholeheartedly agree with you. For the record, I treat my diamonds as if they are quarantine animals. If anything, more so.
Yeah.
Like they are last of the last. Like they eat after everybody else has eaten. There is zero part of them that's coming in contact with my collection inside.
Right. You're taking things out versus bringing it in.
Exactly. They're like when they have to come inside because the temperature is below 40, they're going into the garage.
Yeah.
You know, like they're not, they are, I do perceive them as having mites and ticks and parasites and everything right now.
Yeah.
When or if I get eggs from them, that's going to be a different thing.
Right.
I still have to think through that. Am I going to have my own incubator for them? Am I going to, like how am I going to handle that? Because those are coming out of them and whatever is on the outside of those eggs is probably going to have to die off prior to, being considered clean, while going through the incubation period. I don't know.
So I would say first I'm going to make the joke that, so what you're saying is when you look at your diamonds, you see my IJs.
Yeah.
But next is you got your built-in incubator. And I know someone's going to say, well, what about when they start hatching? Then they're going to get out of the fence and escape. But there are ways to do it. One way to do it is, those black containers with the bright yellow lid, storage containers? That you can get at a hardware store. Do something that's just big enough that she'd fit in. Cut a hole on one side of the lid instead of dead center. Mm-hmm. And then put in your moss or whatever medium you want to use. I use sphagnum moss personally. She'll go in, she'll lay her eggs, and you could leave that hole. And then right around day 50, because it's going to depend on your temps, right? Maternal incubation usually goes a little bit longer than artificial. Right around that day 50, day 55 mark, whatever you choose, just swap the lid to something solid. So she is stuck in there, but you're checking on her every day. Now, I would add the caveat that you have to be aware, and you might want to start doing practice runs now of when she would lay the eggs. What does your weather look like? Where is that box? Is that in direct sunlight? And is it equivalent to leaving a kid locked in a car? So again, I say these things, but I hope that people have a little bit of mindset. Let me practice and trial run this and take temperatures and see what happens, because you might be able to set it up that you provide her with a lot more shade and coverage that's filtering out that sunlight, that direct exposure. And so that nest box isn't getting excessively hot, and you could afford to swap that lid. And so she's locked in there on a day-to-day basis, but you're opening it up. And those who have done maternal incubation know females don't move too often.
Dude, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing maternal with the outside snakes. It's not happening. It's not happening. There's 0% chance of that happening.
But you're not doing it because you don't want to do maternal incubation and don't trust it, or because
just the potential of vectors of disease, things like that. Like I want the neonates to be clean so I can.
So that okay.
Yeah.
So that changes it. But then you could still argue. So then having that conversation, there isn't much that I would say, because there's a few things that we know that'll get rid of like Nido per se or certain viruses. A lot of stuff is as simple as like sunlight or time, right? Same with
Yeah.
human viruses.
I know. Yeah, I know Nick has said that. Like when he incubates, he's like, his baby room is separate. He
Yep.
can't mess with his adult animals if he plans on messing with his babies. And like, if he even told me the day that we podcasted last, he was like, he said, I can't go mess with my adults because I podcast from my baby room, and like he incubates separately, like
Yep.
biosecurity is top priority for him,
Yeah. And with that said, like when you ask him what he does, like he takes it seriously, but at the end of the day, he's not doing anything that's like that we wouldn't ourselves be able to implement, right? He's not this mad scientist with a detox room where they're spraying the chemicals like you see in the movies and all this stuff. And so I want to highlight that because it's like, it's something that we could all be doing and implementing. And it's usually very simple things like have multiple sets of tongs, disinfect tongs, period. Feed with your hand in a glove, like, and then take off the glove. Like there's all these different simple things that we could all do just to help keep things clean and let things die off. But with that said, like if you don't want to do it because you don't want the babies exposed to mom for that potential, there's a couple ways you could do it. I know of someone who is doing maternal incubation up until I think day 45 or 50. Then they pull them and do artificial incubation. But you could just pull your eggs from, I guess, day one and artificially incubate. But you're doing, excuse me, you're doing your reason for not wanting to do maternal incubation is for health and potential risk versus you're not doing it because you're afraid that she'll do something wrong or you'll lose the eggs or they won't hatch.
Yeah. Are you one of these pro maternal incubation hippies that's munching on granola over there in California? You son of a bitch. No, I'm kidding. I know I respect and I admire the people that do that.
Do you see my man bun?
Anybody listening audio is going to be like, I wish I could see his man bun right now.
I do not have incredible. A man bun.
You are wearing a hemp shirt though, and you have a lot of beads on.
Yeah.
Namaste, Stephen. Namaste. So do you do a lot of maternal incubation?
I haven't lately, but yeah, like this last clutch, because I'm redoing the snake room, the wild caught import. I have, in short, I will say I would have loved to completed maternal incubation with her to get the picture of the baby hatching from that. Because I think at the very least, to me, it's a very important clutch. However, because of the remodel, I wasn't able to do it. And for me, the reason I wasn't able to do it is because quite literally, she's going to get moved. And so I try not to move them. I've made videos of moving females that laid in places I didn't want them to lay into a nest box, or I didn't give her a nest box early enough because I was busy and thought I had more time. And I show how I just pick her up with the egg, set her in. She's going to try and kind of loosen. You just quickly cap her and then leave her alone and she'll rewrap.
Okay.
But this was a big like remodel that I'm doing. And so I didn't want that added stress of, and then again, while I'm focused on that, not realizing she ditched the eggs because of that stress. And again, my head is elsewhere. So I did pull the eggs, but she was on them, I think 2 weeks, maybe 3.
Okay.
And again, that's female specifically. That's a clutch I'm really excited for. If nothing else, just again, for my own personal reasons, like very excited. But I would have loved to have snagged a picture of her sitting on eggs with baby poking out.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. When it comes to my setup and the way I do it with basking bulbs and not having heat at night, do you think that maternal incubation is even possible then with my
Yeah.
indoor animals? You
Yeah.
think that the female is going to be okay?
Oh yeah.
Or the eggs rather?
Where does the heat bulb go in the wild at night?
They don't have heat bulbs in the wild,
Ex-
Stephen.
Exactly. And so you have to keep in mind, like I've seen females leave the eggs. I haven't witnessed a female technically move it, but I've marked things where I was doing a very lightweight styrofoam box that came from my local grocery store. It was how they got their fish or their meat. So it was a cube, and I cut a hole in the top, and she crawled in, laid eggs. She got out and she pushed the box throughout the cage to move it, and would bask and take heat to the eggs.
Wow.
And then at night with your heat source, which I was going to touch on earlier, you might want to try heat emitters, those ceramic bulbs. For your setup, just to do something different, because I know you mentioned it earlier about your setup. Anyways, and that's not me bashing light bulbs, because I know that's a theory out there too. I use red lights too, and apparently they're bad.
Anyway. Yeah, I switched away from the heat emitters, and I switched to the actual light bulbs because they're, I don't know, granola tastes good, and I'm a hippie now, and I wear beads and hemp, and it's better for the snake. The snake likes it more.
Okay. So with that said, she'll do just fine. I mean, heat could go completely off. She's going to keep those eggs warm, and you won't understand it. You could read about it in the book. You could talk to Nick about it, and he's going to tell you. Until you do it, you won't understand. And then once you do it, you'll realize, wow, that was easy. Wow, my hatch rate was very good. Like all those things, it's fun. It's neat. You'll learn something from it.
So when you're putting the nest box in, describe an indoor nest box to me. Is it one of those black and yellow tubs, and then you cut the hole on the one side, and then you're filling it with damp sphagnum moss? Is that okay? So
I've done these days quite a few different nest boxes. In fact, some of for those listening online or watching this, IJs usually don't get very large. I have successfully bred IJs in a 28 quart tub, 32 quart tub, and CB70. With that said, this information comes from Yazer. Old school Spitfire was his name. I don't know if it's still Spitfire, but anyway, sorry. If they lay in a tub or a cage and they're not in a box, it's like they need their own little ecosystem, because if you watch videos online, these females always lay in they go under all of the hay or under that tarp at a construction site, or the cardboard or the wood board or the metal sheet, but they get under something, and it's easier for them to control, I believe, temperature and humidity. So if they lay in your tub or cage, at the very least, you want to give them a piece of newspaper, and then you just spray it just a little bit. When I say spray, like literally think of you pulled out a shirt, it was a little wrinkle, and you gave it a quick spray so that way those wrinkles fall out. Just so that way that newspaper covers the snake and kind of molds to it. So now they're controlling the temperature and humidity within that. I have dried out eggs and had to cut eggs from doing maternal incubation in a tub without doing that method. And it was a learning experience. With that said, now fast forward, and let me rewind, sorry. I've done where I've done sphagnum moss in the entire 28 or 32 quart tub, or CB70. And then I give them that little area, that coverage. But present day, consistently, what I do now is a Rubbermaid container, just big enough for them to fit in. I've cut a hole in the side or the top. Females will go in there and they'll lay their eggs, and then it's really just kind of forget about it.
Wow. That sounds a lot easier.
Way easy. And if you look up that video, you'll see the box that I pick up that female and set her into, and she did just great.
Wow. The thing you said about you won't understand it until you go through it. That's how I was with my diamond pythons with the winter. Like I didn't know how it was going to go. And I had all this apprehension. And now that we're in the spring and everybody's eating again, I'm like, I understood it that on some nights, like I made mistakes. I left him out when we had a frost warning and it frosted and the one female got down to 33 degrees. I've talked about this numerous times, so I apologize. But the male, I only have one male. I put a temperature probe in his insulated hide box that he has to go into. And when I went to go get him one night, because it was going to go down into the 30s, and that's my rule. Okay, they go into the garage in the 30s. When I picked him up, he was in the honey bun.
Yep.
Almost like he was on eggs, right?
Yep.
And he was warm to the touch when I grabbed him.
Yeah.
From being out in the sun and grabbing all that heat all day, and then very efficiently coiled in there. And he actually laid on the probe one night and it went up to like 90 degrees, right? Like high 80s, low 90s. And I have that data. I have the screenshot where he goes and he laid on it and actually set off an alarm to let me know that it was too hot in there. And I'm like, holy cow.
It's crazy, right?
It's nuts. Cause I think it was like 55, 56 degrees out.
Yeah.
Yeah. These are incredible animals. And I guess I'm not giving them the credit that they deserve, that I'm like, oh, well, if the heat light isn't on at night, they're going to be screwed,
Yeah. I would say the big thing is as long as they have somewhere to retreat to, somewhere they could, bundle up. I'm sure that would be a different experience if all he had was a branch in there and he's coiled up on the branch exposed to the wind chill and all of that versus like your setup where you have, which I don't remember if you've talked about it, but the brick is cemented together, right? Or is it just stacked? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I had a mason come in and put it together.
Okay. So that brick, I mean, how much do those walls keep out / keep in for temperature control? If there's no airflow, that what we'll call dead air, it's going to be a set temperature, so to speak. Then you funnel it down again and you got that hide for him, that nest box, that whatever that he could go in within. And so it just keeps like levels to it, so to speak.
Yeah. Layers of insulation.
There you go.
Yeah, it's and that I got the idea to do the insulated hide from Aaron, I believe it's Aaron Carney in Australia, and obviously Scott Eiper. I had him on, and they were kind of like, just give them an insulated box somewhere that they can get inside of, and Nick too was like, give them something that would be similar to going into the center of a rotting tree stump or something of that nature.
Yep. I mean, that's a great analogy, that the stump is going to have some insulation factor to it.
Yeah. Insulation. And then, maybe even a little, it's going to retain that heat. Yeah. All right, man. Well, Morelia are cool. It was great talking to you about all this stuff. Good to finally get you on.
Yeah, thank you.
And I appreciate it, man. So if people want to get snakes from you, they need to just wait for you to post a random picture and then like hit you up, right?
I always say never wait, always reach out. But yeah, send me a message on Instagram or Facebook. Facebook is Steven Katz. I got a jungle for my profile pic. And then I have an Instagram. I have an Instagram and maybe still a Facebook page because apparently those are getting deleted. That is SBK Reptiles.
Okay. SBK Reptiles. And so if you want to hit up Steven, you hit him up, you say, hey, how you doing, sir? How's it going today? How's the weather in SoCal? Be cordial. All right, people. All right. We're not just hitting him up and asking him how to feed your snake that you bought from somebody else last week. All right.
Say hi first.
Say hi, All right, man. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam.